This meeting is called to order. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City of Boynton Beach City Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, October 18th, 2022, and the time is now 6:01 p.m. Before we proceed any further, I just want to do a quick reminder for all of you who may be new or even if you've been here many times, just a couple of rules of civility and decorum. Number one, commissioners must first be addressed by the chair and not interrupt a speaker. Public comments must be addressed to the commission as a whole and not to any individual on the dais or in the public. Any acts of personal attacks, insults, rudeness, we don't tolerate any of that here. And if should you violate these rules, we may ask you to leave these chambers. We're going to proceed now to roll call. Madam Clerk?
Mayor Penserga,
Here.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Present.
Commissioner Hay,
Here.
Commissioner Turkin,
Present.
Commissioner Kelly. Here. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Maylee. Our invocation for this evening will be led by Pastor Dwayne Roberts of Calvary Chapel, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Thomas Turkin. So let's all stand for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this good day. We pray for the agenda of this meeting, and we ask for your wisdom as we steward this great community of Boynton Beach. I pray for every elected official that will be presiding over this meeting. I pray for every citizen of the community of Boynton Beach. And I pray for the care for our community. I also want to pray for just the relationships amidst all of us that are part of this great community of Boynton Beach. I pray for all of our first responders. I pray for all of those that will be speaking today. God, that we would acknowledge that you are present. We realize that we are in difficult times and we need great wisdom to steward what's before us. I would be also remiss to not mention those over on the West Coast that are still trying to repair their lives. And we pray for them as well as citizens of this great state of Florida. God, we ask you again to give us wisdom for this meeting. And we pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Pastor Dwayne. It's nice to hear from you. We're going to move on to agenda approval, additions, deletions, and corrections to the agenda. As for myself, I just want to add one item as an announcement. I'd like to add that as our very first announcement under Section 3. And I'd like to take a moment then to recognize our hardworking city staff who participated in the relief efforts in the West Coast. We'll take care of that during Section 3 announcements and special events and presentations. But that's it for myself. Board Commissioner Hay.
Yes, I would like to move item 11B up right after public audience, if that would be okay. 11B after public audience.
Is this, yes, 11B, this is the ratification for the appointment of Adam Temple?
Correct.
I'm comfortable moving it right after public audience. Is there anything else, Commissioner?
No, that's it. I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor?
I want to thank our police department for the support they provided on the West Coast. You guys are heroes. We really are really proud to have you and grateful for everything you do. I was thinking that we don't have the Representative Lindsay from the American Cancer Society. Unfortunately, she was unable to make it. So I don't know if we want to remove that proclamation and just move forward with the meeting.
One option, Vice Mayor, so we have it on the record, is to simply proceed with the proclamation, and then you can either present it to her if you would like, or we can mail it to her or meet up with her separately.
Okay, that works.
But we want to make sure it's on the record.
Perfect.
Okay.
That works.
All right. Was there anything else, Vice Mayor?
That's all. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Turkin, any agenda amendments?
Just 3C. Can 3C be public comment? I think that's more appropriate in public comment.
So 3C is the presentation for the affordable housing bond?
Right. I just think that's something that's on a ballot countywide. that doesn't really, I don't think that should be presented at a city commission meeting. And I know that there's going to be a orientation at our cultural and art and cultural center here soon. So why not have that orientation there and presentation there?
You know, there's a great deal of members of the public here, so personally, I'm comfortable hearing it, provided that it's a concise summary.
Right, that's my
12
concern
minutes.
is I don't want to
Yeah, it's
have a presentation that's a half an hour. So maybe we can cap it out at 10.
Yeah,
10 minutes.
I would agree. I'm leaning in that direction as well.
It was originally capped at 10 minutes.
Oh, great. That's fantastic. Perfect. All right. And then that's right before public comments. If anybody wants to say anything about that, well, there's public comments right afterwards. Okay. Was there anything else, Commissioner?
Nope, I just want to say that I attended the first Friday. It was a great turnout. Thank you, Eleanor, to your team. Super fun. Got to introduce the new city manager. The mayor was there. It was good to see some constituents. So, let's keep that going. I also would like to announce something that I've been working with the city staff with that we're looking into. That I'd like to get y'all's support on in the future is the potential research into looking in a coral reef at Oceanfront Park. I think it's a great way to attract tourism to the city, give families and children something to do. Boca had done this recently at Red Reef Park through grants, and so hopefully we can get this done. It's also a way to help repair our marine ecosystem off the beach there. Years and years ago, you'd see all sorts of stuff when you snorkel down in those rocks. So I think this is a good way to kind of repair, some of the damage that we've caused as humans to the environment. So I'm happy to announce that. I'd love to see what Tess comes up with, and I'd like to thank her for her hard work so far on this.
So Commissioner, first of all, let me say, I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm glad that you brought that up. And if staff, if you've been discussing that already, so could we have that as a future agenda item? So whenever they're ready, if you could bring back a presentation and share some of those thoughts.
We don't have anything right now as far
Right.
as
Future.
yeah, but yeah, for future, yes, we're just looking at the different funding entities that can provide the money. And right now, I think the one that we're looking at the strongest is FWC.
Sounds good. Looking forward to hearing it.
And then another thing I'd like to ask staff if we can look into pickleball courts. I know Andrew Mack has a few ideas. We kind of talked about this. That would be great. It's a hot new trend. I think it's another good way to bring people into the city. And my last thing is looking at our sister cities. I would like to either add an item or have a presentation come to the commission about removing Khufu, China from one of our sister cities and looking into maybe a city in Ukraine that we can assist.
All right. I am comfortable with that. And I think those are also great ideas. And staff, if you could look into that and come back with us with more information. I'm not sure how much of that decision is made by us or that decision is made jointly with the Sister Cities organization, but that's something I would be open to hearing about.
I'll confer with staff and I'll get back to you.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Kelly?
I have nothing to add to the agenda.
All right. If there's nothing else from Commissioner Hay.
Yeah, I would like to just make a comment to what Commissioner Turkin just brought up, because I was going to bring that up too about pickleball. I had the opportunity when we went up to last week. Was it last week? Yeah. When we went up to Daytona, they have one of the best pickleball courts that I've seen. People come from all over the world to play tournaments there. I'm bringing it up because we may want to reach out to them and get some advice and information on how we could do something similar. So I think that's a great idea.
All right. If there's nothing else, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So move.
We have a motion and I heard a second from Commissioner Kelly. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. The agenda is amended. We're going to move on to any informational items by members of the City Commission. This time, let's begin with Commissioner Kelly. Any informational items
I do not have any
or
information.
disclosures?
No,
All right.
thank you.
Commissioner Turkin.
Negative.
Let's do Vice Mayor Cruz
No disclosures.
and Commissioner Hay.
No disclosures.
No disclosures for myself as well. So we're going to move on now to announcements, community, and special events and presentation, beginning with recognizing some of our hardworking city staff. I want to take a moment now, as some of you may have heard, that we deployed multiple teams to the West Coast to assist with the hurricane relief efforts. And we did that from multiple departments, primarily from our police. So thank you, everybody back there, and I'm going to hear from you in a moment. And thank you to also our Public Works team. Let me tell you a little bit about our police department and where they went. They went to Charlotte County, they went to DeSoto, they went to Collier County. They provided hazard assessments, they identified needs, and provided support wherever they could in conjunction with the local EOCs. I want to shout out a big thank you to Sergeants McDevitt and Herney, Officer Mastro, Koch, Hidarian, Hall, and James. They represented our city beautifully, and we are so very proud of the work that you've done. And I also want to recognize Officers Picciano and Castro, who then proceeded to Collier County with a trailer to bring back the supplies or bring to them the supplies that our community donated. And I also want to recognize Officers Shepham and Strong, who will be continuing the delivery of supplies. And before we recognize them and give them a round of applause, let me also mention that we deployed teams from our Public Works and Utilities groups. These teams went to assist the City of Fort Myers utilities in the recovery efforts in coordination with the Florida Water Wastewater Agency Response Network. 8 team members were in Fort Myers from the 4th of October to the 9th to repair and restore the impacted water distribution system, as well as help to repair storm utilities. For example, 5 lift stations, installing generators, responding and repaired over 15 leaks and performed condition assessments for over 30 lift stations. That team included individuals such as Tremaine Johnson, who worked as our field operations manager, led the crew in these assignments. Carrie Ism, field operations technician. Mark Fosame, I hope I'm saying that right, and I apologize if I'm not. Senior mechanic pumping stations. Traverse Pinkney, mechanic pumping stations. Edward Hollis, mechanic pumping stations. Johnny Civil from our Public Works fleet. Ron Prado, and Juan Castro. So if you are all here, I would love for all of you to come up to the front so we can recognize you. So ladies and gentlemen, let's all stand and recognize the amazing people in our city. You guys want to take a photo with them? Let's do it together.
Let's do that.
Let's do it together. Or, all right, yeah, that works too. And here? Yeah.
We're going to knock together. We're going to knock together. Yeah. All right, we're going in the pit.
Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Sir, thank
Want to
you.
stand there? We can take some pictures and everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Seeing you. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you so much.
Guys, let's get a little closer.
Brian, you can't stand in front of me. You can't stand in front of me. No, we're serious, Brian. You gotta get on the edge.
Get over.
Hall, you might be questionable too.
All right.
If any of you would like to take a moment to speak about your experience, the microphones are on the left and the right. And if I forgot anybody, please make sure we include them. He already knows.
Good evening.
Get to the talk.
My name is Mark Filsan.
Mark, could you use the,
Use
there
that
we
one.
go.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
my name is Mark Filsan. We went up to Fort Myers to help out the utilities of Fort Myers. And I would like to thank Poonan for staying on us 24/7. She never give up, man. That was it was hard for us, but she made sure we was in a good place. Made sure that we had everything that we needed. Thank you, Poonan.
Hi, my name is Ray Prado. I work for Fleet Maintenance. It was an experience. The devastation that was caused by the hurricane. But you know what? The team that I went over there with, they were a great team. They were on the ball. They made sure that everybody got what they needed as best that we could provide. One situation, we were pretty much wrapped up for the evening. My phone rings. It's Mark. Where you at, Ray? I'm outside relaxing. Where's your other guy? He said, he's here with me. He says, get together. We got a leak. We got to go. Within 6 minutes, we were on the road headed to the repair. And the repair that was done, I mean, the people there in the neighborhood were so grateful. A little girl I'd say about 7 years old, and maybe her brother about 5, came out carrying a bag of water in gratitude. And I received, my partner went with me, Juan. He says, you're getting your 15 minutes of glory. Several places that we went to, people would have me roll down my window and just say, thank you. Thank you, the city of Boynton. And they would give us the thumbs up. So it was a good cause. And if I had the chance to do it again, with the exception of next week, because I'm going on vacation, I would be glad to go help them. Thank you.
Brian McDevitt, Boynton Beach Police Department. I'm just going to echo some of the sentiments from those guys. They were doing probably more important work than we were. But, you know, the recognition is really nice, completely unnecessary, but we really appreciate it. I'm sure I can speak for the rest of the team when I say that. We would all do it again if we had to, no questions. I want to thank the city manager, Chief DeGiulio, and all of his command staff for allowing us to go. Sending personnel and equipment across the state to aid in a situation like that it's a sacrifice. But I know there was no hesitation from our leadership. They were ready to do it. And we just appreciated the opportunity to represent the city. You know, the people we encountered on the West Coast were so grateful. I mean, I know you guys were talking about that before as well. You know, a lot of these people lost everything and they were super thankful for us to be there. So it was pretty humbling, especially when you consider the fact that that could have been us. You know, it could have been Boynton just as easily. And, you know, I can tell you that we brought some lessons back that I think will make us better prepared as a police department and as a city. And, you know, we just appreciate the opportunity. So that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a proclamation for October 15th as White Cane Safety Day. The proclamation will be accepted by John Crossley, a Vice President of the National Federation of the Blind, Palm Beach Chapter. I'm going to read the proclamation into the record, and it's a bit lengthy, so please bear with me. Whereas walking is a great form of exercise and reduces carbon emissions, and whereas pedestrian safety is very important, greater awareness of the white cane law leads to safer, more attentive driving. And whereas according to the 2020 US Census, there are 42,950 people in Palm Beach County who reported having a vision difficulty. And whereas the white cane, which every blind citizen in our city has the right to carry, demonstrates and symbolizes the ability to achieve a full and independent life and the capacity to work productively in competitive employment. And whereas the white cane, by allowing every blind person to move freely and safely from place to place, makes it possible for the blind to fully participate in and contribute to our society. And whereas every citizen should be aware that the law requires that motorists exercise appropriate caution when approaching a blind person carrying a white cane or guided by a guide dog. And whereas drivers must always yield to the right of way to persons who are blind. When a pedestrian is crossing a street or highway guided by a dog or carrying a white cane or a white cane with the red tip, vehicles must come to a complete stop. And whereas the National Federation of the Blind believes in the full capacity of blind people and has the power, influence, diversity, and determination to help transform dreams into reality by acknowledging that blindness is not the characteristic that defines a person or their future, every day the Federation raises the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and their dreams. Now, therefore, I, Ty Pensurga, Mayor of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, do hereby proclaim the 15th day of October as White Cane Safety Day. I'm going to ask if I could meet John Crosley. Are you here, John? All right, excellent. I'm going to come down and present you with this proclamation.
Let's try the solo one, I guess. Hello, all right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, constituents. Thank you, Council. On behalf of the NFB, I am happy that you guys are acknowledging the White Cane Day on the October 15th. I've been blind about 12 years now, and it's a bit of a challenge, but the White Cane does help a lot. And thank you guys for acknowledging everything you can do. And thank you for all the help that you will be providing when we do our White Cane Walk this Friday at the intersection of Gateway and Congress. We'll be walking around the intersection, so come check us out. So, all right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second and final proclamation for the evening is to proclaim the month of October as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This will be accepted by Lindsay Bennett. However, she's not available, so we will deliver this proclamation at another time. Senior Development Manager for the American Cancer Society. Let's read this into the record. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the Breast Cancer Awareness Month began in 1985 as a partnership between the American Cancer Society and Imperial Chemical Industries Pharmaceuticals, and breast cancer is one of the most commonly diagnosed cancers among women, and whereas many organizations, including the American Cancer Society and Susan G. Komen for a Cure, hold community events promoting awareness and make contributions to raise funds for research providing progress in how breast cancer is diagnosed and treated. And whereas in 2021, more than 281,550 new cases of breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed. Wow. And whereas nearly 42,000 women die from breast cancer each year in the United States, and whereas increased breast cancer screening increases early detection, reduces death, increases life expectancy, decreases late-stage cancer diagnoses, and increases 5-year survival rates. And whereas the American Cancer Society recognizes that although great strides have been made in breast cancer awareness and treatment, there remains much more to be accomplished. And whereas during the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we recognize all those who know the anguish of breast cancer and extend our heartfelt concern for all who share the pain and difficulties of this disease. Now, therefore, I, Type Surga, Mayor of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And again, the individual is not here today, so we will deliver this at another time. We're now going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a presentation by Morris G. or Skip Miller, Vice Chair of the Housing Leadership Council of Palm Beach County, on the county's affordable housing bond on the November 2022 ballot. All right, I see you're approaching the podium. Either one, it's identical.
I think we had sent a PowerPoint. Is that loaded? Do you have that?
City clerk should have the PowerPoint.
Did not?
I gave her
Well,
your email.
If, I'll go ahead and without the PowerPoint, that's okay. About how long do you want me to make this presentation?
I would say 10 minutes or less, sorry.
10 minutes
You
I
got
can
it.
handle. Thank you.
Yep.
First of all, I want to, Mayor, council members, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity this evening. This is a really important item that's going to be on the ballot in November. And I just want to take a few minutes really to just explain how it's going to work and maybe some reasons why people should vote for it. The question on the ballot will be the County Question 1 housing bond, and it will appear on the ballot right after 3 proposed state constitutional amendments. In January of 2021, Florida International University released a Palm Beach County Housing Needs Assessment, which documented the severe housing crisis in Palm Beach County and showed a net deficit of 20,000 units for essential workers between 2010 and 2019. This shortage has been getting worse over a period of many years. Since 2012, we have built about 2,000 units each year, less than what we need to keep up with demand. That means that we are now about 20,000 units short of where we really need to be to accommodate the housing needs of our essential service workers. I'm not going to read you the language that's on the ballot. It's really, I hate to say it, it's poorly drafted and bad grammar, and it doesn't really tell you very much about what we're asking. Now, the reason for that is because it's a constitutional amendment, the ballot language was limited to 75 words, and there were certain things that had to be in there. And the county's bond council, by the time they squeezed everything in that they said had to be there, there really wasn't much room left for anything else. So I'm just going to tell you what this ballot, if you vote for what you're approving. We're asking the voters to approve a bond issue to increase the supply of affordable and workforce housing. The bonds will be repaid from ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property in the county, not just the unincorporated area. The amount that can be issued is up to $200 million. It can provide funding subsidy for households earning up to 140% of area median income, which is $128,000 a year. So this will be available to households earning anywhere between $0 and $128,000 a year, and I'll explain later exactly how that's going to work. The bond issue will encourage developers to build housing with units for affordable and workforce. The proceeds of the bonds will be used to offer low interest rate loans to builders who will produce homes and apartments that will be affordable to our essential workers. It will be paired with other sources such as private loans, fee waivers, and other federal, state, and local programs. So why vote for this bond issue? What are the benefits? Well, if you're a renter, the benefits are obvious. If you're one of the lucky few that winds up being able to rent a unit that's subsidized, your rent is literally going to be hundreds of dollars a month less than what it is now. And if you're one of the other renters in the county, just by virtue of the laws of supply and demand, if we increase the supply of housing, we think that's going to moderate the increases in rents and hopefully even see the rents trending downward. If you're a homeowner, there's significant benefits also. I'm sure you've all seen help wanted signs and signs of restaurants and businesses that are closed. The reason they're closed is because they can't find workers. And the reason they can't find workers is because the workers can no longer afford to live in Palm Beach County. A study by the Tourist Development Council showed that low wages and high housing costs were the primary reasons why workers leave retail and service jobs. You see this everywhere. You go into a restaurant, you see that a whole section is empty because they don't have servers. The pharmacy that used to be open 7 days a week is now only open 6 days a week, and it closes at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Your children are going to school, and half the time they have a substitute teacher. These are all reflecting back to the fact that the cost to live in Palm Beach County is just so high, higher than in most other places in the country. If these shortages continue, they will affect the ability of law enforcement, hospitals, and fire and rescue departments to be adequately staffed, which will make our communities less safe and may result in increased response times and possibly higher property insurance rates. Also, if households are spending too much of their income on housing, they may not have enough money for other necessities like healthcare, and they won't have disposable income, which means less business for our local stores and restaurants. We share this problem with the rest of South Florida. Putting money towards the problem is not the whole answer, but in this situation, it will be an important step in addressing the severe supply-demand imbalance. We must add units, and we want the units that we add to be affordable to those performing essential jobs, those people who make our community a great place to live. To give you an example, if the county makes a $2 million loan from bond proceeds to a multifamily developer, and that represents 10% of the total cost of the development, then for that 10 million, we're actually getting $20 million worth of new multifamily housing. This multiplier will bring a large benefit to the economy in addition to what it's going to do to moderate housing prices. So on the single family side, talked about multifamily, and we talked about the benefits for everyone. This program will enable builders to build housing at a much more moderate cost than most of the product that's out there today. We think that on the single family side, we will also see a moderation in house prices, and we will see houses become more affordable again to people who qualify for the program. Here are just two examples of essential workers who are priced out. We are using for purpose of these examples the standard benchmarks, which you're probably all familiar with, of 3 and 30. 3 meaning a household can typically afford to spend about 3 times their annual income on housing, and 30 meaning a household can typically afford to spend about 30% of their income on rent. Well, let's talk about homeowner. Let's talk about a teacher. Average teacher salary in Palm Beach County is $51,400. If you take our multiplier of 3, that means they can afford a house costing about $155,000. Well, that doesn't exist, not in Palm Beach County. Our average house price right now is close to $550,000, much more than what the average teacher can afford. And the average teacher, as you'll see in my next example, cannot even afford our average rent. Second example is a Palm Beach County sales clerk who makes $18 an hour, which means they can afford a rent of about $910 a month. But the average rent in the county is at least $1,700 a month, probably closer to $2,000 a month. So our average person is only making about half of what they truly need to afford to live in Palm Beach County. Now, here are the details of how the bond issue will work. The bond proceeds will be used to provide low interest rate subordinate gap financing that will replace more expensive debt and equity required to build units. In return for the less expensive funding, a substantial percentage of the units being built will have to be sold or rented to qualified households for a below market sales price or rent for an extended period of time. That extended period could be anywhere between 15 and 50 years, just depending on the product. So here's the way it's going to work. Let's say the bond issue is providing 10% of the cost, and let's say it's $10 million towards a $20 million development. On the multifamily side, if we provide the developer with this low interest rate gap financing at maybe 2% a year, instead of equity or subordinate debt, which might cost 12 to 20% a year, the developer is going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest costs each year. And the way these loans will be structured, that debt will be subordinate, which means that it will make it easier for them to go out and get senior debt because the senior debt will be repaid first. Not-for-profit or smaller developers that do not have deep pockets would not be able to finance their development at all without this subordinate gap financing. Now, in exchange for the money that the developer is going to save, they will have to agree to set aside a certain percentage of their units for affordable and workforce housing. How much they set aside and what income category the set aside units will be provided to will depend on how each developer submits its application for funding to the county. The county will not tell developers what to do. Rather, the county will offer incentives to developers that will provide a greater per unit subsidy the lower the income level that is targeted. So for example, if they're building units and the income limit is going to be 120%, they might only need a $15,000 or $20,000 per unit subsidy. But if they're going to build housing and that housing is going to be occupied by people making 80%, that subsidy might be much higher. It might have to be $20,000 or $30,000 per unit. So it's kind of like a sliding scale. On the single family side, the money will be used to provide a loan to the developer that is equal to the difference between the cost for the developer to build the house or condominium and the sales price that the developer can get. When the unit is completed and ready to be sold, the county, the state, and other funders will provide additional funding sources to make up that gap to the developer. So on the single family side, it's really like a revolving loan fund. As the house is sold to the end buyer, the loan to the developer is repaid, and the funds will be available to make another loan even after all the bond money is spent. On the multifamily side, because the loan has to be repaid over time, the bond money will go out, and then in a few years, it will start coming back in as the loan starts to be repaid. Again, will be available to make new loans. County staff is working on a bond allocation process to be considered and approved by the county commission. There will be separate competitive processes for single family and multifamily, and they will establish the criteria by which the county will evaluate and rate requests for bond funding. Almost done. Want to make sure that everyone understands that the bond issue does not impact the zoning and land use approval process for residential units. So if a development is in the city of Boynton Beach, developer will go through the same process they go through today. This will just be a funding source that might be available to them. So we're not asking the cities or the county for that matter to bypass its normal approval process. Where people ask, where will these developments be? Developments will most likely be what we call near transit-oriented developments, which would be near the Tri-Rail and Brightline stations, major bus lines, which will reduce the cost of units in those areas because people will be less likely to need cars, so parking requirements will be less, and those types of areas are more suited for additional density. There are also areas that provide opportunities for what we call adaptive reuse. Adaptive reuse is where you take, for example, a vacant shopping center or other underutilized commercial use and convert it to residential. We also think that the bond issue will provide an opportunity for housing out in the glades, where it's very much needed and so much of the housing is substandard. Now, I haven't told you how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost hardly anything. I know that sounds like it's too good to be true, but the county has estimated that the increase in your ad valorem taxes for the average house in Palm Beach County will be about $14 per year. So for that $14 per year, we're actually going to get approximately $2 billion of new construction activity. The other thing is that we've been asked is, how are we going to make sure that the program works the way it's supposed to work? The county, it's a county bond issue, so the county will be responsible for monitoring and enforcing, and they will put measures in place to make sure that the program is successful and that it accomplishes what it intends to accomplish. Landlords who participate in the program will be required to annually certify that they meet their legal obligations to charge fair and affordable rent amounts. Homeowners with financing under the program will have to provide a notice of sale. That will enable the county to ensure that when an affordable or workforce program house is resold, the new buyer will be someone who qualifies also. All loans made with bond proceeds will be protected by a recorded deed restriction, and the Housing Leadership Council, of which I'm the vice chair, will provide oversight and monitor program progress towards our goals. I want to thank you for your time. I'm sorry we didn't have the PowerPoint, but we'll send it to you afterwards so we can share it. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And I wanted to thank Leslie Mandel, who's one of our staff people with the Housing Leadership Council. She helped us put together this presentation. And thank you for your help. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. And while you're here on the podium, do my colleagues have any questions right now while he's still here? Seeing none, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. And there will be a community forum.
Yes, I was about to ask if you could just mention the date. So if
yes,
people do have questions or
the
want to
one-
learn more.
The one
do it
here will be Thursday, October 20th from 5:30 to 7, and it will be in the Arts and Cultural Center next door.
All right, fantastic.
Great. Thank you all, and hope everyone will vote for on Amendment 1.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to now move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is public audience. Just a couple of items. Number one, as always, each individual has 3 minutes. Comments must be addressed to the commission as a whole and not to any individual in the audience or on the dais. I also want to mention that this is not a Q&A. This is a time for you to be heard. We will take down your information. If you would like to leave your contact information, we have staff who can accept that. I also want to mention that there are several ordinances that will be read into the record this evening. All right. Now, these ordinances are read what they call first reading, which is it's just the preliminary introduction. It'll come back again for final voting at a future date. First reading of ordinances do not have public comment as a matter of protocol. So I want to let you know now that if you would like to speak on any of those ordinances, do so during this time in public audience. Now, let me just quickly run through the ordinances to make sure that we're all on the same page. Those ordinances include items pertaining to commercial frontage, to pensions, pertaining to telecommunication towers, also parking requirements, senior exemptions for low-income seniors, building height is one of those ordinances, and the tenant notice and bill of rights. So again, those are first reading, which don't normally have public comments. So I'm going to ask that if you do want to say anything about those, do so during this time. All right, so we have our first public comment speaker. Please begin when you're ready, and don't forget to state your name for the record.
My name is, I have this to pass.
Keep going.
Okay. My name is Karen Yeho. I have several addresses, 1305 Via de Pepe, Boynton Beach, Florida.
Could you bring the microphone a little closer, please?
100 Via Lugano Circle, unit number 203, Boynton Beach, Florida. And 8038 Tangelo Drive, Boynton Beach, Florida. And 1101 North Federal Highway, Boynton Beach, Florida. Those are my properties. I spend the time today. I type out 4 pages. So to condense everything else, it's in writing. I address the mayors and commissioners. Thank you for listening to me. Today, I want to talk about code enforcement. Code enforcement that levies fine and also put a liens on the properties and then seek foreclosure on the property without the due process of the law. That comes to the question as to why isn't that $1,000 fine a day is very, very extraordinary amount? I do not see any Florida statute claim that City of Boynton Beach have a right to assess $1,000 a day on the fine, especially without the due process of the law to let the homeowner know that their house have a liens on it. Now, so I wrote everything down and I'm perfectly qualified to make this assessment because I am an accountant. I'm also EDP auditor. EDP auditor meaning I'm a fraud auditor. I read through computer program and I had to figure out how people cheat before you tell me how you cheat. So I'm also a licensed real estate broker. I'm a licensed community association manager. I'm also a Florida professional licensed teacher for math, science, and ESOL. And also I went to registered nursing school to be best nurse for my parents. So I have all this qualification and I type in the 4 pages for mayors and commissioners to read, if you care to read. And I also put in the public records to support whatever I say. So everything I say in this document, I have support evidence. That's the important supporting evidence. And so
A few more seconds.
thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time. And I hope that you will take the chance to read it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good evening, everyone on the dais, Bishop Bernard Wright, everyone in the audience. I'm Bishop Bernard Wright, CEO of Bernard Wright Ministries, current candidate for commissioner, former candidate for commissioner and mayor. I stand as a husband, as a parent, as a long-term resident of Boynton Beach. I want to talk about three things within this 3 minutes that I have. The first thing I want to talk about, I'd like to see a proclamation of a Stanley Dale Davis III Day every year in the city. Also between Boynton Beach Boulevard and Robert E. Wells Memorial Avenue, I'd like to see that section, Stanley Dale Davis III, also a bag park in its name. We can never say there's enough in the spirit of excellence for this child, which is my child and every child inside of the city. And so we always want to remember that because it has to do with being an honor roll student and being mannerable and just in that spirit of excellence. The second thing I want to talk about is this 14 million that's in the bank drawing interest, that we have a ranking system, and there are some of us, and I'm part of that. These 501c3 organizations have applied for, have ranked from 10 to 13. Great figures, don't go no 4 and 13. Why have we not dispensed this money? This was during the pandemic. We're still in a pandemic. We're still in not only just an inflation, we're in a whole lot of things going on right now and need for social justice, economic and social security inside of the city, with apprenticeship programs needed, programs to keep the children off the streets so they don't get ate up by the streets, penitentiary, jails, and an early graveyard. Many things need. So these $14 million are in there. What's going on with that? We haven't heard anything about that. I wish you all will give me some kind of response and respect to that. I want to thank the Department of Labor for the things they do when I call about potholes and other things going on, the infrastructure of the city. Being a community activist and an effective one at that for many years, 12 years at that. I want to thank a lot of you all in the department for the great things y'all do. When Bishop Bernard Wright do call about something, I wish other citizens would get involved when they see something. Just call and we'll get things done. God bless y'all. Have a great day, and do take all of that under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Susan Oyer, Boynton Beach. So I wanted to share two obituaries that need to be read into our record. So the first is Sue Beeman. Many of you know she lived here for decades and decades. Sue Beeman died on September 26, 2022 after a brief illness. Born in Dover, Tennessee in 1930, she came to Boynton Beach in 1936. She attended Boynton Elementary School, it wasn't Beach yet, and graduated from Boynton High School in 1949. She worked for Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners until her retirement in 2003. She was a member of the Boynton Women's Club and the Boynton Historical Society. Survivors include daughters and a nephew, Sean Murphy, who lives here in Boynton Beach, the daughters Kelly Shea and Sharon Brandwee, who live here in Boynton, and Greg Murphy of Jupiter. So I wanted to let you know about Sue Beeman. I know many people knew her. The other person, and this kind of went quietly and unnoticed, was William Bill Godfrey James. Bill James, he's a former state rep from our area. He passed on September 14th, 2022 in Juneau Beach at the age of 92. He is born in Boynton Beach and one of 8 children of Godfrey and Margaret James. In his extraordinary life, he attended Delray Beach High School prior to it being Atlantic, and graduated from the University of Florida, go Gators, served in the United States Army, the 508th Regimental Combat Team, detached from the 82nd Airborne, owned and operated Delray Beach Insurance Agency, established in 1956, attended and served as a charter elder at Seacrest Presbyterian Church in Delray, and was active in the Civitan Club. He is elected to the Florida House of Representatives 1967 to 1970 and 1972 to 1978, serving as House Republican Minority Leader in 1976 to 78. He's, let's see, you would know him because he married Conrad Piquel's daughter. So he was Conrad Piquel's son-in-law. He's the one who owned the beautiful Conrad Piquel house in Leisureville. After she passed, he ended up selling, moving outside of Orlando, married again, and then moved to Juneau. But I wanted everyone to be aware of these passings and make sure that ends up in the record since they were both longtime Boynton residents. And I'm going to say, as to the amendments or the ordinances, the frontage one, it was horribly presented at P&D. And I hope that there's actual better examples and you are given a better demonstration than what everyone saw at P&D. And I say, down with heights, maybe you should follow the voters who voted for a 48-foot height limit back in, what was it, 89, I think it was. The voters voted 93%, I believe it was, of the city said 48-foot height limit. So I'm going to ask that you consider that when you're looking at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, let's go to the right side of the room now. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Marjorie Ferrer with the Daughters of the American Revolution. In July 2026, America will be celebrating its 250th birthday. We stand on the eve of a grand commemoration. The United States will mark its anniversary that day. The National Society Daughters of the American Revolution has established an America 250 committee to plan DAR's involvement in our nation's upcoming birthday. Much like the bicentennial celebration of 1976, this observance provides an excellent opportunity for community involvement. In October 2021, a meeting was held with Palm Beach School District supervisors promoting a plan to celebrate America 250 by focusing on the graduating class of 2026. Those students are currently in 9th grade. There was great enthusiasm from the staff and school board members, and several ideas were discussed, including presenting a Constitution book to each student. And inside it explains that this is their book. And if they accumulate points throughout the time that the next 4 years, this is their passport to a trip to Washington, D.C. The Florida State Regent of DAR challenged each daughter to create an individual project in their community, and this one is mine. The goal is to create a recipe for this project that can be shared with the other 67 school districts in Florida. These graduating students will be able to vote, join the military, continue to higher education, enter the workforce, and I believe it is critical that they learn the meaning of the Constitution, about the Declaration of Independence, the laws of our country, and the importance of voting. For more than a century, the members of the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution have dedicated themselves to historical preservation, promotion of education, and encouragement of patriotic endeavor. This project encompasses all three. Most city managers and county officials in Palm Beach High School districts have already agreed to sponsor their individual students with the DAR Constitution book, including the 4 high schools in the unincorporated districts. The total estimated incoming or existing 9th grade students in Palm Beach County totals 14,000, believe it or not. Boynton Beach interim city manager James Stables and his team deserve special thanks for their support of this project. And right now I'd like to present to you a certificate of appreciation from the Daughters of the American Revolution, if I may read it. I don't know how I'm going to present it, but I'll pass it along. The National Society Daughters of the American Revolution Outstanding Community Award presented to the city of Boynton Beach. For participation in the Palm Beach School District and Daughters of the American Revolution America 250 project for students graduating in 2026. Celebrating America's 250th birthday, signed by myself as project coordinator and our state regent, Debbie Dewey. So I'm going to present this to Maylee.
Thank you so much.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate
And
that.
there's information here. It's a Constitution book for each one of you. I don't know when the last
Please
time is
pass it down.
that you read it, and also a packet of our baseball cards of lesser known patriots. And
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
For the
So all right, next speaker, please begin when you're ready.
All right, good evening. Thanks, Commission, for having me tonight. My name is Danny Farrell. I'm at 4414 Round Table Court in Boynton Beach. I'm here tonight as a member of the Senior Advisory Council and as a concerned citizen. I don't know if you know, but this year we have 15 million seniors who will fall underneath the poverty level in this country. 5.2 of those million seniors, according to AARP, are worried about having the money to pay for food and for prescription costs. As we get down into the demographics, it gets worse as we get into Hispanics, Native Americans, African Americans, and further down. About 1 in 4 of our older adults who are 65 and older have to scrimp each week to pay for food, utilities, clothing, medication, and this is all due to exorbitant healthcare costs. In 2022, this year, 37% of these adults, according to AARP, said they are extremely worried about making it from week to week and being able to pay for these items. In the city of Boynton Beach, approximately 21% of our population is considered 65 and older. That makes about 17,000 people in our city that we consider as senior citizens. As a city, we need to do a lot more to help our seniors. We have the resources to do it, we're just not doing it. Seniors should not have to worry about how they will pay for these food or prescriptions, and it's our responsibility that we should take care of these important group of people more than we are today. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody on the right side? We're gonna take turns going back and forth.
I'll use the tall one. Good evening, Commission. Good to see everybody. 2 comments for you tonight. One, sorry, am I okay? Oh, sorry, my name's Gregory Hartman. I don't have a name tag on my back, I forgot. 1093 Gulfview Harbor. 2 things tonight. One is on the height ordinance that I know is going to come up for later. I'm kind of a fan of where it is now. 45 feet, I understand, was voted on some time ago. But I think it may have been a little low. I believe 85 would be the max in our downtown corridor now. I think that's a fair height limit. It's not overly high. It's probably higher than a lot of us would like, but maybe it's a middle ground between what works economically and what works for, traffic and what the citizens actually want, which is, weird to think about sometimes. So what's best for us? Maybe 85 feet is right. I thought it didn't look bad as it was on the agenda tonight. Secondly it's not on the agenda, but I know it's been mulled about, is a hotel coming to downtown. I think we do need a hotel in downtown. I didn't think it belonged on Seacrest and Boynton. I certainly don't think it belongs on Ocean west of Federal. I think where it belongs is, closer to the marina. Or tourism industry is, hopefully can be more on guide fishing oriented. When someone comes from out of town, if they're staying on Seacrest and Ocean or even First, they might think, oh, the marina's too far away. I can't see the water. If we had a development of a hotel, say on the northeast side of Ocean and Federal, I know it's probably going to become a condo. I think that's the area where hotel development should go. So you could see the water potentially. You can walk over to Banana Boat or Two Georges. You can book a very expensive charter and spend all day here. So I think that'd be the best decision for the city. I wish you guys could take that into consideration. I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the other side of the room. Don't forget to state your name for the record and begin when you're ready.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vinette Nelson. I stay in 240 Northeast 12th Avenue. In 2009, I purchased my home. That was the day of joy for me. But about 6 months ago, it became unbearable to live by prostitute, drug dealer, and homeless. Right now, they wake you up 1 o'clock in the morning playing music. Because you could see they do the drop up. I have picture where I sent it to code enforcement Calvin, and he told me I need to come to the meeting, of course, and told me I have his PD responsibility. I call PD where they come knocking at my door. 5 o'clock, I was ready to go to work, and she was high as a sky. And since I stay in the corner a lot, of course, they're using my water hose for them to shower. So please, I need your help. They use between my house, front of my house, and the church, because I have a church right across from me, and they have a bench where they turn into a 2-story house. So please, I need your help. I need peace.
What I can do for you is I can just direct you to Assistant Chief Jack Dale. He's in the back room. Give him your information. And what we can do is we can do an extra patrol, make sure you get some police assistance out there to make sure we kind of clear that area up for you.
Yes, please. Thank you very much. Appreciate
He's in the
it.
very back, and our Director of Finance, Mara Frederick, can point you back there.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, next speaker. Once again, we're going to go back and forth in the room. Don't forget to state your name.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Hall. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Greenberg Trorick. I'm here this evening representing the owners of 1 Boynton. Obviously objecting to the reduction in height that you're considering. It seems very curious for you to approach a reduction in height this way. You have a comprehensive plan that allows certain densities. You have a CRA plan that allows densities and height. And so what you're doing tonight is tinkering with the zoning ordinance, which seems like, first of all, a backwards way to deal with things. Doesn't seem like the long, thoughtful process you used to get to this point. And it would have a significant impact on my client's property. They are planning redevelopment of the central portion of that property and would require the 100 feet height in order to accomplish that. To take this away from them isn't going to make Boynton a better place, isn't going to accomplish all the goals you want for the city, but is going to have you, unfortunately, paying for that reduction, because under Florida law, Bert Harris, if you take entitlements away from a property, there is a process that allows the property owner to file a Bert Harris claim and ask the city to pay for that reduction. That will be millions of dollars. I ask you to think about all the things this city needs, what those millions of dollars could really accomplish for you, and what it's going to accomplish to take 2 stories from this property. It's not going to be very much, I think. I look at Wilbright, it needs redevelopment. I look at Federal Highway, it needs redevelopment. If property owners learn that sort of on a whim, you're going to reduce entitlements to property, who's going to invest in the city? Who's going to rely on the stability of your long-term planning and think that you can invest in the city and expect to be able to develop in accordance with your entitlements? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, this side of the room.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brother Victor Norfus. I live at 225 Northwest 6th Avenue, Boynton Beach, Florida. I spoke to you about a month ago concerning creating a Unity Park and naming that park after Reverend Butler, concerning the segregation of the town in 1924. Today, I'm going to give you other reasons why we need to create the Unity Park and why we need to vote. All lives and votes matter. And this is a little Boynton Beach history on what happens when we cannot vote. Mayor Canute created Boynton Beach Color Town to take property of Black residents who signed the charter creating the city in 1920. Only 5 years later, he wanted to create the separate city for them. The mayor invited the Ku Klux Klan to march through the city for days prior to the Canute election, terrorizing Black residents and white residents as well. Forcing Black residents to leave their property and terrorizing white residents to vote a certain way that he wanted them to vote. Boynton Colored Town was more of a reservation for Black people to live. Our labor was more valuable than our lives in 1924. 100 years later, we will celebrate the ending of this with the signing of the Civil Rights Act. But today, we have many people that will not or choose not to use their vote to better their lives and the lives of their children and their neighbors and their friends. So Black people, white people, everyone, we must get out and vote. What I have here is a document that I received from Janet DeVry. We share historical information. It was a document of the Palm Beach Post in 1924, and it talks about Mayor Canute and the election at that time. Since I have enough time, I'll quickly read it. Canute retained as the mayor of Boynton Town. Political feelings in Boynton in regard to the attempt to recall Mayor C.F. Canute from office reached its highest pitch Monday evening when the Ku Klux Klan paraded the town and culminated yesterday at the election, where Mr. Canute was retained in office by the vote of 91 citizens. His opponent, A.B. Porter, received 80 votes. So there were 80 citizens that chose not to segregate and 91 that did, but the Blacks were not allowed to vote. I'm pretty sure that would have failed. But going on, intense feelings have been displayed on all sides in Boynton ever since the filing of a petition on September 6th for the recall of Mayor Canute on charges of inefficiency. Supporters of the mayor, who has held the office for the past year and a half, prompted rallies to his side and worked untiringly in his behalf. The demonstration of the Klan on the eve of the election and the fact that the 171 votes cast represented the largest vote ever polled in town. Thank you. All lives and votes matter, and that's a little Boynton history.
Thank you.
I could leave this with you if you like.
Yes, please leave that with staff and we'll pass that along and we'll have that for the record. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the other side of the room.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. My name is Bonnie Miskell, and I'm here on behalf of the owner of the northeast corner of Ocean and Federal Highway. My client is the Hyperion Group. They closed on the property approximately a year ago. Prior to doing so, they did extensive due diligence. They looked at the land use, they looked at the zoning. They understood that they could develop up to 150 feet. They also understood what their intensity was and their FAR. They immediately after closing commenced preparation of site plans. They had several different plans they were considering. The one that we ultimately submitted had a phase 1 and phase 2. While the phase 1 was around the proposed number that you're mentioning, the phase 2 included a place mark for a hotel and for some additional residential that would well exceed the cap that you intend to impose. That plan obviously was not found compliant for other reasons, and we have to go back to the drawing board should you approve this ordinance, the upcoming height ordinance. I'd just like to share one thing. I've been working on that site for a very long time. I worked for the prior owner, and I was involved in the prior adoptions. It was consistent with the CRA. There was significant community outreach. There was data and studies and testimony and evidence that supported that change. It was not done overnight. It took several months to get there, and everybody was engaged in it. This approach seems to be, it is being done in haste. It's been rushed through. We were fortunately, as a courtesy, your staff let us know, but we were not even given the text until it was provided to the Planning and Zoning Board. And my client has millions of dollars at stake because of this change. We ask you to be thoughtful and mindful in your approach to adopting it. I certainly don't criticize your staff. They were given direction, they followed direction, but it isn't being done properly. It should be done with studies and analysis and impacts. And one last thing, in the MUC, you need to understand there are 6 landowners who have property zoned MUC. 3 are already developed, 2 of which are at the 150 mark. There were statements made at the last meeting that were wrong. The facts were not present. The board acted on information that was deficient. We ask you to do it the right way. Do it the way you did before. And if you are going to make those significant changes, they ought to be done efficiently, legally proper, and based on real evidence and testimony, not emotions. And thank you. I appreciate the time, and I'll see you again.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I'm here to speak on the ordinance 22-024 on building height reductions. I'm going to give you another side of the pie. My office is located at 4600 North Ocean Boulevard in Boynton Beach, and I'm here representing 2,000 members of the Florida Coalition for Preservation and an additional 3,000 members of the Boynton Coalition for Responsible Development. I applaud your forward vision and your willingness to readdress the issue of building heights in the core areas of the city. As a new commission, you have the right, actually you have the obligation to determine whether Boynton is on the best growth plan and assess how things could be improved for a more prosperous and sustainable future. Reducing excessive building heights is an excellent first step. Your residents don't want to be the next Fort Lauderdale, nor do your neighboring towns. Excessive height equals more apartments and more vehicles. Excessive height equals more traffic congestion at key intersections and can compromise emergency service response times given the fire EMT stations that are located at both of these intersections. Excessive height equals less airflow and sunshine, which reduces green open space and desirable walkability. Excessive height compromises stressed infrastructure and exacerbates persistent flooding. Excessive height creates parking issues which impact the success of your downtown businesses. Excessive height is simply not needed, and I fear it will continue to compromise your ability to develop a thriving downtown, a green downtown, a walkable downtown, a downtown with thriving businesses, a downtown that's easily accessible by vehicle, a downtown for today and future generations to enjoy. I encourage you to pass this ordinance on first reading. This is not a Bert Harris claim. Don't cave in to the scare tactics of attorneys who are representing developers. You will be remembered for chartering a new path for the city and will have the support and the appreciation of the residents alike. Thank you so much.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Christine DeHasseth.
Thank you. Next speaker, we're going to go on this side of the room.
Would that be me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Reedy. I moved to Boynton Beach in 1974, which is probably a few years before some of you were born. Started going to commission meetings probably 20 years ago or so, and I was a witness to several of the transactions. Miss Mescal, Bonnie Mescal, came representing Boynton 1. The city, the CRA was forced to hand over basically $1 million property so that they could complete their square without any kind of kickback, no plan for, okay, well, when are you going to break ground and build something? And it wasn't a few meetings later that Miss Mescal showed up asking the city commission at that time for permission to bifurcate that lot after we'd just given them that giant chunk of property. You know, I was here and I voted for the 4-story height limit. You know, we're Boynton Beach. We don't vote for anything, okay? And we voted for that height limit, okay? And the next thing you know, we've got 100-foot buildings, 150-foot buildings popping up all over the place. And the people that live here, that's not the city that they want. It's not the city that I want. Okay, that's not who we are. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have water and sewer and all of the things that we need to handle all of these enormous buildings. Personally, I'm a little tired of the developers coming to town whining about, oh, if you don't give it to me, I'm just not going to make enough money. If you don't give me the extra however many feet, it's just not profitable enough for me. I wonder how Delray Beach survives, only having 4-story buildings. Perhaps we should call them and ask them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, it is.
My name could be Santa Claus if you look at me, but actually it is. I just did it for Hanukkah and Christmas. But some of you know me. I'm actually Dr. Piotr Blas, very serious scientist. 113 Tara Lakes Drive, Boynton Beach, Florida, 33436. And I would like to stress what I say today is quite important. Well, number one is the shocking story of Knuth that was told to us by the brilliant young man in the back. If this guy could march through the city with Ku Klux Klan and win elections, then I believe that the Knuth Road, which some of you know is at the edge of Boynton, should be immediately renamed after who? After Reverend Cheney. So I'm putting this on the table, I put it in writing. Knuth does not deserve a road. A Ku Klux Klan supporter deserves to rot in hell. However, Reverend Cheney should be remembered here. He was another Martin Luther King. So that is the number one issue responding. Now, as for the height, you know what? I'm proud of our Boynton. I don't want developers and lawyers come in and threaten us with millions of dollars. Go away, keep the height restriction. We're not afraid. I was in the Israeli army. I'll help you if necessary, okay? And if not me, the Mossad. Yeah, so no threats from lawyers. Now, the next thing I can tell you, I'm kind of looking at a very important commissioner because I want him to listen, especially. As most of you know, I've been practicing the University of Boynton. I'm a scholar, PhD. I need to brag a little bit to make sense. I'm somebody who has a life of scholarship behind me, 60 years, famous all over the world inventor. So, well, it's actually true. I wish I was a ballet dancer, but I'm not. So, no, but let me now, it's painful for me. Let me now express myself. On Yom Kippur, sorry, on Rosh Hashanah, on the Jewish New Year, I went to Starbucks, which is my usual place to drink coffee and do very advanced mathematics. After Starbucks told me, take the big table in the back, Dr. Blas, just one table. Everybody laughed, they know.
A few more seconds.
But I have to say, suddenly, Boynton Beach police officers, two of them, come with guns, threaten me to leave, mumble something about trespass, and cause me trouble.
All right, sir. Thank you for your time. Your time has now expired. All right, thank you. We're now going to move on to the next speaker. All right, please approach the podium, state your name for the record, and begin when you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Shannon. This evening, I'm standing for my child, Stanley Dale Davis III. Previously, I know a lot of the citizens have come here and have introduced possibly doing a proclamation in regards to his death. I know a lot of that kind of got overshadowed with all of everything that was concerning his case. So I am here tonight to restate that proclamation as December 26th. I would like that day to be for him in honor of his demise. I know my team is watching, and for the record, I'm here to reintroduce that and to request that again, December 26th, in honor of his death. I would like to see that on the future agenda to have a proclamation for that day in honor of him. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. My name is Jeff Eder. I'm a property owner out on La Chalet Boulevard. I own a business out there, and I own a property over in Ocean Ridge where I live. Regarding Ordinance 22024, the height limitation, we have been dealing with a developer over in Ocean Ridge for quite a number of years who you have also probably dealt with over here. We've effectively beaten him now. It took years. We've been fighting him since 2013. The urban sprawl that we're dealing with is not what Boynton Beach residents want. The height limitation it needs to be evaluated carefully, and we don't need these giant skyscrapers being developed around our town. It's changed the entire character of the eastern part of the town. We don't really want that. It stresses the infrastructure of the town significantly, as was mentioned earlier. We're dealing with flooding on Ocean Avenue on a regular basis with high tides. We've got proximity to water and a fragile mangrove forest, which is right across the intracoastal from where some of this development would be. There doesn't need to be this density. It always wants to go up, up, up. We've been threatened with Bert Harris action as well, and we basically said no and stop. It's enough. There's more than enough development potential in this town without going to that height elevation like that. It just completely has destroyed the skyline of the town, or created a skyline that didn't need to be there. I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any other in-person public comment speakers? This is the last call, and during this time, just let me remind you that if you would like to speak in any of the ordinances, please do so at this time. All right.
Ernest McNally, 710 Northeast 7th Street, Boynton Beach. First of all, I'd like to talk about the Stanley Davis case, SJ case, as it's known. The mother was just up here. I've worked intensely on that case. It was a block from my house. I've put in thousands and thousands of hours. I've been all over the state. I've been in the sheriff's office. I've been in the Florida Highway Patrol office. I've been in the Boynton Beach Police Department. I've been everywhere on this case. I do cases all over the country and beyond. And can I tell you, this case, I never can imagine how this city is getting away with handling this case this way. We're talking a major cover-up. You're blocking Oprah's. You're blocking internal affairs complaints. You're blocking the videos. You're blocking witnesses. There's tampering between the sheriff, the Florida Highway Patrol, the Boynton Beach Police, and it just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. You don't want to comment on it. You keep packing with police, every city official office, so that you keep covering all this stuff up on this case. Let me move on. Next is, you're always giving yourself awards here. This city has so many fire hazards, so many building hazards, so many living hazards, so many fire violations, so many non-CO, certificate of occupancy rentals, so many tainted inspections, and the municipal court here, the magistrate, I come to all of them. It's frightening what goes on here. It's frightening how the cases are handled. It's frightening who gets $1 million cases dismissed and who gets $1 million cases against them for not cutting the grass. So we can't get investigation of anything. It just keeps going and going. The next thing I want to talk about, I brought the nativity scene here. And this is my third year here. And I don't know why this city keeps allowing hundreds of thousands of dollars for LGBTQ on the holiday season, painting roads, paint, signs, everything. Everything is okay for the mayor to spend taxpayer money on a $1,700 menorah from up in New Jersey, East Orange, New Jersey, and put it out front. And then, of course, Kwanzaa is there, which I don't have any problem. But federal law knows, and this law firm knows, that a city has an option. You either put all three or you put none, and you have a generic holiday tree. You want to keep putting two, and you refuse to accept my nativity scene. This is going to be the third year now, and you won't even answer emails, and the city manager won't do anything. This commission won't do anything except smile. They think everything's funny. You're discriminating. You think it's funny. You laugh at everything.
All right. We're now going to move on to any last call for final comment speakers. Any other in-person public comment speakers? This is a last call. Seeing none, we're going to go online to the virtual group. Mani, how many people do we have with their digital hands raised?
Mr. Mayor, we have 2 hands raised. Our first hand is Vanessa Belmonte. Vanessa,
Okay.
you're unmuted. Please begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We'll let you
Okay.
know when you have 30 seconds left, and don't forget to state your name for the record.
Thank you. I'm Vanessa Belmonte. Address is 100 Northeast 6th Street in Boynton Beach. I'm here as a homeowner in East Boynton and a concerned citizen who was born here in Bethesda Hospital in '86. So I'm very much in favor of approving the height ordinance reduction to 85 feet. I live here in Marina Village, and I have to say, as a coming back to Boynton and living in Delray and other cities, there's nothing like having this smaller city feel. And just because we don't have tall buildings doesn't mean that we're not going to thrive and grow and progress. First off, as Susan Oyer mentioned, residents already voted on this. It's kind of unbelievable that lawyers and developers are threatening our city. Your residents go to the polls and vote for you, commissioners. We do not vote for developers. 2 stories really should, she said that 2 stories really shouldn't make a difference. It makes all the difference coming from a local, especially a local who lives in East Boynton. There's so much traffic. The trash is unbelievable. The flooding, like that gentleman mentioned earlier, is really insane. Like, you can't even drive on that road multiple times a month because of the flooding and the cracks in the bridges. It's like the infrastructure is failing. No one wants to mention that. They want to just skip over and talk about development. We cannot develop on a weak foundation. And right now the foundation feels very weak. We don't want high buildings. Gentrification is a huge issue. To me, it feels like we're going to be continuing to displace current inhabitants in the process. And that's proven in Delray and so many other cities. Gentleman came on earlier talking about people who can't afford rent. Teachers cannot afford rent. Tons of people cannot afford rent. And with overdevelopment, it's just going to get worse in our city. I don't want us to be a Fort Lauderdale or a Delray. Preservation is also another really important topic when it comes to supporting this. Our ecosystem, our beautiful coasts, our ocean, our mangroves, our birds, just the fact that we have a marina and have that beautiful area is going to just continue to be depleted. As someone who experiences it all the time, I see more and more trash and disrespect and for that area. Pollution is really on rampant. So I also just want to mention about the affordable housing bond. I think there's a disconnect between the development of the program. Like, the intention is good, but the execution just feels like it falls short. The developer seems like it has zero contributions to this. Like, basically they're saving money, and they should really be the ones paying that $14 a year. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but $14 a year adds up, and they're just getting profit. So I think that it should be really mandatory that the landlords pay for the certification the developers pay for the landlord certifications, they pay for that $14 a year, and we really develop programs to help the local citizens go through the home buying process. Like, let's connect the dots for them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mani, we're going to move on to the next public comment. Who is that?
Our next and final speaker is Corlin McGuire. Corlin, you're unmuted, but you're self-muted. Please click the microphone next to your name. Thank you.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, this is Cortland McGuire, 506 Whispering Pines Road, Boynton Beach. Thank you, Commission, Mayor. I'm a member. I'm on the Planning and Development Board, the Arts Board, and our task on the Planning and Development Board was to determine what the community wanted in terms of height. And this was initiated by Commissioner Thomas Turkin. I want to thank him for that, because as a former candidate for the District 3, it was pretty much very prevalent that height was not wanted. And as many stated before, there were lower height restrictions. We went through all of the protocol, all of the discovery, all of the information as requested by the commission to determine our recommendation. And our recommendation as a board is to reduce the height limit to 85 feet. Now, some wanted it lower, some wanted it higher, but I think this is a really good level in terms of a city that separates us from the south or the north and gives us our own independent voice as a seaside city, really founded in fishing. So regardless, I want to tell the commission that we did our due diligence. We think that that's the recommendation. We should stick to it. The developers that are speaking to on Boynton 1, that's a developed parcel with structured parking that they'd have to tear down. The other parcel that is on the northeast corner of Ocean Avenue and Federal Highway, they do have a bit of an argument there, although it's a recent purchase. We could make an amendment for hotels, but we do not want high density apartment living in their corridor. That was pretty much, that was not pretty much, that was unanimous amongst the board, the steering committee, for you, the commission. So that is our advice, and we hope that when later on in tonight's agenda that comes up, and I will not be present, that this is the advice that you will take. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. All right, Money, just double checking, do we have anybody else online?
No, sir, that's it.
All right, that concludes public comments. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. And previously we did a reorganization to bring up 11B. This is proposed resolution number R22-144. Approve and ratify the appointment of Adam Temple as Assistant City Manager, Development Services, pursuant to City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 2-30B. City Manager, would you like to introduce this item?
Yeah, thank you. So the thought process behind actually moving Adam to an assistant city manager position is with the promotion of Deputy City Manager Andrew Mack, that essentially leaves a vacancy for one assistant city manager. In order to make sure we have better accountability over economic development, being that that's our number 2 item on our strategic plan, along with public safety. I felt it necessary to actually provide that accountability and how responsive, knowledgeable Adam is. His tenure within the city, all of you, I'm sure, have had to go to him for his knowledge base and his leadership. I felt that the move to appoint him as assistant city manager was in the best interest of the city, staff, and the community. The backdrop to that is how I tried to cover it to make sure it was essentially budget neutral, with the exception of a $10,000 pay raise I provided to him in the event of his appointment being approved, of course. Came with essentially reclassifying him as the director of P&D, or planning development. So that was the thought process behind it, and I appreciate your consideration. And if you guys need Adam to speak on this, I'm sure he'd be happy to.
Well, thank you, City Manager. Now I'd like to ask my colleagues if you have any questions or comments pertaining to this item, either for our City Manager or for Mr. Temple. Commissioner Hay.
Yes, I've had the opportunity to work with and dialogue with Adam Temple over the time that I've been here. And I think City Manager has made an excellent choice. I couldn't think of a better person to fit that role as Assistant City Manager. Adam is very qualified. He's a people person. He has responded to every request that I've had so far, whether I like the answer or not. But Adam is an excellent person for that position, and I'm looking forward to working with him as well as the rest of our staff and City Manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Yeah, same thing. Just had several opportunities to work with Adam. He's accountable. He responds quickly. He gets everything done. He's very supportive of anything we need to get done in the city. So happy to see that.
Thank you. Commissioner Turkin.
I couldn't agree more with my colleagues. I think this is a great fit for Mr. Temple. What I've noticed is follow-up is awesome, you know, and not just with me, but also with the residents. So if there is a concern, you know, I get an email from someone, Adam's right on it, he gets staff right on it. You can tell he's a good leader. I walked into the building department, I think last week, and everything was decorated. Everyone was motivated. Everyone was just happy to come to work. And I think that's an awesome, like, you can tell how good a leader is by how their staff is and how happy they are. And they'll tell you if there's something wrong with you know, their boss. I'm sure they're not afraid, but I think getting Adam in this next position is great, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kelly.
I agree with my colleagues. I think this was the move that made sense for him. I personally worked with him on some, you know, small questions and issues that have come up, and he answers the phone right away, calls me right away. So I have only good things to say about Adam. So I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just say that if this was America's Got Talent, I would be the one pushing on that golden buzzer. All right. I think that summarizes my feeling about Adam. And I'll leave it there because I'm super excited for him and very proud of the work that he's done. And I look forward to seeing what you'll do. So 1 second, we do need public comment on this item. So if you would like to speak specifically on this resolution to appoint and ratify, approve and ratify the appointment of Adam Temple as Assistant City Manager, now would be the time to approach the podium.
Ernest McNally, 710 Northeast 7th Street, Boynton Beach, Florida. My building and the building next to me was built in 1975. It's got lots of problems. And I work with who you just declared as unthinkably great, a very problematic building department that does not do, I just listened to all your comments. Oh, he returns emails, he returns calls. He's so responsive. He's so knowledgeable. You see what's being improved in my development? Too many docks, poor electric, fire hazards, code hazards, right? And you never get an answer from Mr. Temple, never. And when he does, he denies everything. And then when the property's flooding and there's fires and the elevator is down, and because of the work they do without permits, because that building department doesn't make sure everything is inspected and done with permits, right? They don't respond. So where are you at the storm? Great. We're under almost a foot of water with a problem elevator and a lot of seniors and handicap. And you're over there. I don't mind. You're up in North. How about all the people here? How about all the people here who have problems? And then you brag about, oh, Mr. Temple, the building department and the DPW and the police. Are you kidding me? What's going on in this city with crime, shootings? Look, last night they're in one of the developments breaking all the car windows. You don't talk about anything. All you talk about is how great everything is. What reality is this group in? I want to know. And what's worse than that, you have a law firm, no matter what this building department or zoning department or planning department or police department or fire department or commission does, right, wrong, or indifferent, this law firm covers everything up. We can't get an investigation. We can't sign a complaint. We can't sign anything. So you could say all you want, unqualified. I don't think anyone on this dais knows too much about construction, about building and zoning. I know because I observe you all. Most of the time you're taking texts from everybody because you don't even know what questions to ask. And then you get involved with all these problematic developments that people don't want that cause flooding and fires and damaging the service. And then you're opening up all these pot and late night bars with people driving reckless and crime, and you're proud of it. You think you're all doing a great job. And can I tell you, Mr. Temple is behind most of it. Who built this building? He was involved with the building of this building. And wait till you see the problems that this building has, the way it was built. It was built by people out of Miami where this whole group came.
Your time has expired. No, step away from the podium. All right, any other persons who would like to speak on this item? All right, seeing no one in the chambers, let's go virtual speakers. Manny, is there anybody virtually with their hands up?
Mr. Mayor, we have no hands raised.
All right, public comments are now closed. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve Adam Temple as Assistant City Manager.
all right, we have a motion and we have a second to approve and ratify the appointment of Adam Temple as Assistant City Manager. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Temple. Do you want to say something?
Yeah.
Adam,
You want to say some words?
where is he?
Yeah, he's got to come
He's
up
back
here.
there?
All right, come on, come on up.
He's all the way in the back hiding.
Come on. Can no longer hide.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
1 second. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Commission, Mr. Manager, staff, and members of the public. Biggest guy, one of the biggest guys in the room, but I was shrinking back there. You know, whenever I hear positive remarks, really warms me, and really grateful for it. Anybody that knows me knows that I relentlessly pursue public service, and I'm very passionate about public service. Have been for a very long time, and just want to thank all of you, all the members of my staff that work very hard every single day. They're the unsung heroes that have thankless jobs at times, that do such a great job for the city each and every day. They uplift me every single day, and just grateful for my family that's sacrificed so much over the last couple of years through my municipal experience and my military service. Couldn't do it without them. So just really appreciate everybody's support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have concluded that item. We're going to move on to the next section, which is administrative. Appoint eligible members of the community to serve in vacant positions on city advisory boards. Let me read to you what positions are available and in which boards we have applicants. All right. So in the Building Board of Adjustments and Appeals, we have one applicant, Stephen Palermo. Commissioner Kelly, this is your appointment for an alternate position for a 1-year term. Would you like to make a nomination?
Yes, I will select Stephen Palermo for that vacancy.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. The education, excuse me, if we could close the door, please. The Education and Youth Advisory Board has no applicants. We have 2 student positions available. Historic Resources Preservation Board has no applicants. There is a regular position available as well as an alternate. The Library Board has no applicants. There is an alternate position available there. Recreation and Parks Advisory Board, there are 2 applicants, Alexandria Lopresto and Allison Pandev. Commissioner Turkin, it is your appointment for a regular board seat. Would you like to make a nomination?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Allison Pandev
All right.
to the Parks and Rec Board.
We have a motion. Is there a second? There is a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. That concludes the administrative item. We're now going to move on to consent agenda. Are there any items that my colleagues would like to pull from consent agenda? Going once, going twice. Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Say
to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. We're now moving on to consent bids and purchases over $100,000. Is there any item that anybody would like to pull? I would like to pull item F. This is pertaining to the Lakeside Gardens utility stormwater and water improvements.
I don't see, I don't know if I see any.
Is that E?
Yes. Yes.
How did that happen?
Need new
We just-
glasses.
It was, it was a,
We just had our meeting.
yeah, we had to make a correction just after the agenda review.
Okay,
Probably,
whatever letter
probably a
that
few
is.
minutes.
Whatever letter it is, but it is the Lakeside Gardens Utility Stormwater and Water Improvements item. Is there anything else from my colleagues? Because if none, may I have a motion to approve the remainder of consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion, and Commissioner Kelly, that's your second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The remainder of consent bids and purchases over 100K is now approved. So I'd like to hear from staff. Tell us about the work that you are doing in the Lakeside Gardens Utility Stormwater and Water Improvements.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm here to talk to you about the Lakeside Gardens project. It has been a long road and very proud and very happy of all we had accomplished. The Lakeside, could you please move to the next slide, please? The Lakeside Gardens is located in the northeast area of the city. It's east of Federal Highway and is one of the lowest areas in the city. It has an elevation in some points on 2 feet in IBD, which is even lower than high tides. So the area is located in a special flood hazard area and is a repetitive loss area for flood insurance. So the area flows repeatedly, with rains, with high tides, and with the storm events. So what we had proposed is a multi-pronged project. We went and we applied for a grant with the federal government, with FEMA. Could you go to the next slide, Manny, please? And we got the grant. The grant, it was 2 phases. Phase 1 was for the design and phase 2 is for the construction. So in addition to doing the drainage improvements, the city decided to take the opportunity to do, to renovate and to upgrade existing aged infrastructure. For example, water mains that also will allow us to provide additional flood protection in the neighborhood, fire protection in the neighborhood. And also we are going to upgrade sanitary laterals. Next slide, please. So the project basically is 70% stormwater improvements, 16% water main, 14% sanitary. The grant that we had from the federal government, from FEMA, is $800,000 for this phase. And that is only for the drainage. So the lowest responsive bidder is B&B Underground Construction. The city had worked with this contractor in the past very successfully. So we are pleased that we are bringing a great contractor. So we are here recommending, staff is recommending that commission approve the award of this bid. And now, next slide, please. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the work that you're doing and the entire team. I'd like to open it to questions and comments from my colleagues. Any questions or comments? All right, I'm not seeing any, so thank you again.
Thank you.
So that concludes that presentation. So now I'd like to ask for a motion to approve Resolution R22-151.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Cruz and a second from Commissioner Hay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously. We're now moving on to the next portion of the agenda, which is public hearing. It is item 8A, if that's still correct, whatever the numbering system is, but this is the proposed resolution R22-145. I'm going to turn to council, then I'm going to ask if the property owner or the applicant is here today. I'd like to hear from them as well, and then we'll do public comment. All right, council.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Commission, this is a public hearing under the ordinance, Chapter 2, Article 4, Section 2-56. We have the city as owner of a parcel of property. The city did receive a offer to purchase that, and so the first step is for you to conduct a public hearing and to declare the property as surplus property, and then authorize the city to dispose of the property through negotiated sale. Mr. Mack can answer any questions you may have on the specifics of it, but that's the process you have this evening.
All right, thank you, council. Does staff have any additional comments besides what's already been provided? Sir. All right, so I'd like to hear now from the property owner, the applicant. All right. Make sure to introduce yourself and state your name for the record.
Yes, Howard Brown, 2825 Southwest 4th Street. On that property at 317 Northeast 12th Avenue, Boynton Beach. My desire is to remedy a situation that's over in the northeast section of 12th Avenue with all the vagrants, homeless people, and the drug activity. They're sleeping on the property next to me, and I would like to acquire that property. Just last week, I moved a mattress that's in the back of the property because all the vegetation that the city owned. The city owned that property, and I want the city to give me that property or sell me that property for $1. I would like to make a bid for $1. It can't do anything, city can't do anything with it. And I would like to remedy that problem by cutting some of that vegetation down so the police, the fire department, everybody can see from the road to the back of the property. I had the luxury of bringing Commissioner Hay over to that property to see it for himself. The city manager, I believe, came over there. The CRA director has been over there, and it's a nuisance. So I'm asking the city to grant me and my wife that property, if possible, to help remedy that situation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Colleagues, do you have any questions or comments for the applicant while they're here? Commissioner Hay.
Yes, I've been over several times to look at that property. And if you look at the property across the street, it's out of line with Mr. Brown's property. And that little small, I don't know if it's 20 feet. We can't do anything with it. The city can't. And if we were to give that to this property owner, it lines up the properties. Okay. I don't know who platted and why was that little strip put there, but it doesn't make any sense the way it is right now. It does make sense to allow this property owner to maintain it, keep out those undesirables who are there. When I was there, I wouldn't even go in the back. It was just too thick, and I didn't want to step on anything. So I just kind of stayed away. But I do recommend that we allow this property owner to have that and maintain it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor, any questions or comments?
I think it's the right thing to do. You guys need it to preserve your property better and to have a better quality of life. So I support this.
All right, Commissioner Turkin.
I support you, Commissioner Hay, support y'all. No questions or comments.
Commissioner Kelly.
I don't have any comments. Just thank you for reaching out to the city about this and being willing to take it on as, as part of, hopefully it'll be easy to clean up with, the city's help and with you taking it over. So thank you.
I fully support you as well. I think it's a good thing that you want to take care of your surroundings. It's a good thing. It's a step in the right direction. And thank you, Commissioner Hay, for
it's good for the city.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we have these properties and we're not doing anything with it, and somebody wants to take care of it, absolutely, let's give them that ability.
Right.
All right. So we've now heard from council. We've heard from the applicant. We've heard from my colleagues here. I'd like to open this up, of course, to public comment. So if you would like to speak on this item, now would be the time to approach the podium.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Either side is fine.
I just want to congratulate Mr. Brown of being an active citizen of Boynton and taking care of that property. We need more people like you. Thank you.
Amen.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Sir?
Dr. Bloss.
Dr. Bloss.
Come on back. Yes, we need it for the record.
Not Santa Claus.
Not Santa Claus.
Dr. Piotr Blas, Piotr Blass, 113 Tara Lakes West, Boynton Beach, Florida, 33436, Boynton Beach. And Boynton Beach is the best city in the country, and we're going to declare it the Orchid Republic. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak on this item and specifically on this item?
Ernest McNally, 710 Northeast 7th Street, Boynton Beach, Florida. I like the fact that everybody smiles when I get up to speak. I find it interesting that city property, you can't maintain it. So what's the idea? When the city doesn't want to maintain a property or get police to patrol it because there's crime, you just let it get dilapidated and then you donate it to someone. Is that the pattern? It is the pattern. But it just keeps happening over and over again. District 2, where this is so problematic with properties that you keep doing this, you're going to set a pattern. You're going to set a pattern because you think that's the only lot that the city owns or that people own that's dilapidated. There's no patrol. There's crime everywhere. There's shootings. They're breaking car windows, etc. And your answer to everything is, well, just donate it. Well, isn't it a city-owned property? Doesn't city have DPW? How come they don't keep it clean? Oh, and there's vagrants and criminals there? Well, why don't the police go in and enforce it? No, everybody backs away, and then you all decide, oh, how all these residents will like us and vote for us. We'll donate land to them. What business is the city in? We're taxpayers here. We own that land. I don't think too many people on this board actually own property here. I know everybody doesn't, but maybe a few do, but I know some don't. And for you to be making these decisions when the public's never even represented here, and you just keep coming up with this stuff. Well, we don't want to deal with the crime there. We don't want to deal with the garbage. We don't want to deal with the drugs. We don't want to deal with the car violence and gang activity. So we'll just leave it until it gets so bad that we'll call it a chronic nuisance, and then we'll give it to somebody. Well, really? How about giving it to somebody else? I'll take it. Give it to me. Well, why do you decide who gets that property? Who made you all the authority? And I know you think you are the authority now. You make all these decisions the way you want. You think it's a great idea. You think if Mr. Hay was ever held accountable for everything that he's done wrong in District 2, we could be here for 6 weeks. But no, it turns out when the city doesn't maintain something and the police don't patrol and the fire doesn't do anything and the homeowners are in danger, what's the answer? Give it away. Really? Well, how about the taxpayers? You're giving away, I'm a homeowner here. What you're giving away, I own a piece of that. I pay over $5,000 for a little condo for taxes here. I own city property. Half of you all are from different places. Now you
All right, your time has expired. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this item? All right, seeing no one else in the audience, we're going to go to virtual speakers. Is there anybody else online, Manny?
Mr. Mayor, we have one hand raised. It is Corlin McGuire. Corlin, you're unmuted, but you're self-muted. Please click the microphone next to your name. Thank you.
Hello, Commission and Mayor. This is Cortland McGuire, 506 Whispering Pines. Just thought I'd drop a line on this issue or item. Free land, I would like to get free land. I think my constituents would love it too. Not really exactly sure the details on this one. It's new to me. But what I would say is that doesn't sound right. So it doesn't sound taxable, doesn't sound perfect or clean. So despite the neighboring properties owners' comments that are relevant, I would say that this is not an issue to just distribute land. That's how I understand it. Just making that brief comment. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you. And Manny, please double check that there's nobody else online.
That's it.
All right, we have heard from council, we have heard from the applicant, we've heard from the commission, we've heard from the public. Now it's time to vote, unless there's any final comments that anybody else would like to make on the dais.
Nope, I just want to clarify this, this is for you, Mike. So with acquisition of this additional parcel, Mr. Brown will then be paying taxes on the additional square footage of his lot because that'll be expanded.
Well, yeah, of course,
Right.
it'll,
Yes,
whatever his value is, the tax
Sure.
collector will reappraise or property appraiser will reappraise it. And again, this is to declare it surplus and authorize the direct negotiated sale. The actual sale will have to be approved separately.
All right, and what exactly is the value of this property, the appraised value? Do we have that information?
$880, I think.
All right,
I think it's
Andrew Mack, is that
$1,000.
correct?
Yes, $880 according to Palm Beach County property.
All right, so this resolution before us is one to declare the property as surplus and then to direct staff on our desired disposition process. And staff recommends that it be a negotiated sale. I just want to make sure that that is clear with my colleagues before we vote. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, and just for the record, this is not the first time we've had
Right.
Of
a
course,
situation like this,
of course,
as some people would try to indicate.
yes. Okay, may I have a motion to approve resolution R22-145?
So move.
We have a motion and a second. I don't know who that happened very quick. Were you the second, Commissioner Kelly? Was it
Yeah.
Commissioner? All right, Commissioner Kelly is the second. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. We're now moving on to new business. And the first item here is commission discussion on advisory boards reporting to the city commission. This was requested by Commissioner Kelly. Commissioner Kelly, this was your item, and so I'd like to begin with you.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to say thank you to Catherine. She has provided everyone with a spreadsheet that kind of breaks down all of our advisory boards that we have, how they work, all the, how many members. And so thank you to Catherine for working on that. One of the reasons that I brought this up to the board is, I've sat on quite a few advisory boards, and one of the things that we've always had to do was report to whoever whoever is governing us on an annual basis to kind of provide feedback to the commission on what the board is doing, any projects that the board assigned to them, and some recommendations on what they've discovered, what additional feedback they have for the city, whether or not the advisory board is productive or not, where they're hitting maybe a brick wall, or where they may need some assistance from the board. So that was kind of the reason for bringing it up. I feel like it's important for us to just kind of on a regular basis discuss the advisory boards and make sure that these are volunteers in our community, and they're very important to us on the board, providing us feedback. And we also don't want to waste their time. Time is valuable, as we all know, and they're taking time away from their families to participate and volunteer. So that is why I brought this up. So looking for some support and feedback from the board to just, I feel like this will probably be a regular process conversation that we'll have on how we want, the advisory boards to work. So.
Commissioner, I want to thank you for bringing this item up, and I appreciate you doing that because this is something that I've been toying in my mind for quite some time. Normally, what I have to do is go chase after board members or board chairs to get an update. I know there are meeting minutes, but they're quite lengthy, and it's always better to hear it from a person directly. I do have a follow-up question for you since this is your initiative. I just want to be absolutely clear. What is the format that you're imagining that they report? Would it be a written report, a summary page? Would it be them coming to the meeting? And if so, how often are you imagining? What are your thoughts on that?
I am open to your input. Typically, it's the one of the advisory boards that I sat on with the county. We present to the county what has been happening, if we were given a project, what the outcome of that project was. Very short presentation, just but so then that way we can provide feedback and ask questions and maybe direct them a little bit more. So that was kind of my thought, was that it would be, and we can rotate it so that they're not all on one evening, but just a short presentation on what they have going on. And you know, we may find that there's an advisory board that maybe doesn't support needing to meet as frequently, or maybe can merge with another advisory board so they can work together a little bit more efficiently. So that was the reason.
I would love that. I would prefer it to be in person and, like you said, on a rotating basis. I don't know if it's one member from the board presenting in a particular meeting or maybe two. I don't know. But all I do want to say on that is that we make it clear that whoever comes and reports to us, that they are representing the board's point of view, the board's position, and not just their individual, or if they do, that they make that very clear so there's no misrepresentation, right? So, okay, so that's it for me for now. I want to hear from Commissioner Turkin, and then we'll go around the dais.
Nope, I think this is great. I agree with my colleagues. Don't have anything to add on this.
So you're comfortable with in-person rotating
Yes.
basis? All right. Vice Mayor Cruz?
I'm fine with that as well. Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Commissioner Hay?
I do agree with it. The boards that I've served on over the years, we did an annual thing, but really it depends on the individual board. Some meet more frequently than others. I do agree with the in person and summary form. It was about accomplishments more so than projections. But I do agree with it. I will support it. And I think being here in person, but we may want to take a look at how often some of these boards meet to determine, because you don't want a board bringing a list that long and another board meeting only once or twice a year. You know, I think we need to tweak that a little bit, but I support it.
All right. It appears that we have consensus on this, but I would like to ask staff if you could research, the schedules and how they might align with our meetings, so we can get a sense of who would be available, which boards would be available, and at what time. And then once we know that, we can have an even more clear understanding.
Right.
Yeah, that shouldn't be an issue.
I'm sorry. Catherine Montes, Assistant City Manager. So most boards on the list here meet once a month. There's a couple of boards that meet as needed or on a quarterly basis. So I would say and I think we would like clarification on how frequent. I think probably annually makes sense. Otherwise, we're going to be inundated with reporting at the meetings and making them longer. So maybe we stagger them too, so that you have maybe 2 reporting per meeting or something like that. The other thing I would like to recommend, you can shoot me down if you want, but is that we would get a report that the board approves before it's brought to you. That way, you have consensus on what's being reported to you
Excellent
from the
idea.
board.
Yes.
Excellent idea.
Yep.
Commissioner Hay, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, commend whoever gave us this. This is great information to have, because I thought I knew everything, but find out that I don't. So I want to thank. Was this you, Casper?
Did you memorize it already?
Already. I'm ready for the exam. But I do agree, once a year it would be fine with me.
I would say at least once a year, unless there's something urgent, that needs to be brought to the attention of the board or per the board's request.
We reserve the right.
Right. Okay, Commissioner Kelly, was there anything else you want to add to this?
No, I thank you for, hearing this item and supporting me on this. I think that these advisory boards, like I said, are important to, to our success in providing us feedback and being our our voices out there and working in the community. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Vice Mayor?
One thing I was thinking about is how do we let the community know when there's an open appointment? I've heard a lot of constituents mentioning that they're interested in serving, but the boards are full, like there's 7 people in there already. How do we communicate that to the public? Just letting them know like there's an opening. And
So the report goes, I believe, monthly on, and it shows what vacancies there are, but we could certainly look at ways to put the word out on what boards have vacancies, because some of the boards carry vacancies pretty regularly. So we would love to have more constituents
and it seems
volunteering.
like the ones that are full are the ones that everybody wants to be on. So thank you.
All right, staff, do you have sufficient clarity and direction?
Yes, thank
Catherine?
you.
All right, excellent. All right, this concludes this item. We're going to move on now to legal. We have numerous ordinances here, proposed ordinances under first reading. So again, there's no public comment on these, but we will have public comment on second reading. That's when the action is final. The first one is proposed ordinance number 22-018. I'm going to turn now to council to read that into the record. Then we'll hear from staff. Go ahead,
Mr.
Council.
Mayor, this is an ordinance of the city of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 1, Article 2, Use Definitions, Chapter 3, Zoning, and Chapter 4, Article 3, Exterior Buildings and Site Standards, CDRB 22-005, close parens, to include requirements for commercial frontage, providing for conflict severability, codification, and an effective date.
All right, thank you, Council. Ms. Radigan, I think the show is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Vice Mayor and Commissioners. The item before you, as legal has just explained, is regarding commercial frontage. Next slide, please. So currently in the code, we do have a couple of items regarding commercial frontage. The code does state that commercial frontage is required on our mixed use and overlay arterial roads, and it is required on the ground floor. It also allows some amenities that are specifically for residents to be included within that count. The code does not dictate currently a minimum percentage or square footage for those uses, and it does not include any design of those required spaces. Next slide. The first part of the amendment separates the uses between commercial uses and active uses. Commercial uses is how we all understand commercial uses. It's retail, it's services, it's publicly serving. Active uses are kind of a quasi. They're usually resident-based. Something like a clubhouse that has a leasing office would fit in this category. This also would cover the design of any residential units that are required or provided on the ground floor. So how you design your residential units could qualify under active uses. Next slide. So this is the meat of the amendment. What this does is create two categories for what is required and where it's required. The first and most intense requirement is to the right of this chart, and that includes a 70% commercial frontage requirement, and the remaining has to be active frontage. This would apply to our main corridors, including Martin Luther King, Federal Highway, Ocean Avenue, Boynton Beach, East Ocean Avenue, West Boynton Beach, and Seacrest. There is also a lesser requirement where we would require 50% frontage required, and the rest could be anything else. This would be in some of the downtown areas, such as Southeast 4th Street. While still in downtown, our main thoroughfares would require the 70-30 split. This also would address within SMU, Old Boynton Road and Winchester Park Boulevard. Those two are primarily to support the redevelopment of the mall. Ooh. Next slide. This is essentially that information that I just spoke about in a map form. So you could see all of the solid green lines represent the 70% requirement, while the two lines that are green represent the 70% requirement within SMU. And then the pink and magenta colors depict the 50% requirement. So you can see in the lower red box that it covers Martin Luther King, Boynton, Ocean, and Seacrest, concentrated within our downtown and pedestrian pedestrian-centered areas. Next slide. This image depicts what these percentages actually mean. So I would ask you to imagine that each one of these diagrams is 100 feet for easy math. The top one depicts the 50% requirement. So that blue represents how much of your frontage meaning building, which is along your road, would be required to be commercial. And the other 50% could be whatever you need it to be. The second diagram, which is applied to our main thoroughfares, have to be at least 70% commercial and 30% still has to be active. So we are really talking about the full frontage on these roads. The other thing that we are doing within these required spaces is requiring a 40-foot minimum depth. There are examples around the city of commercial spaces that were done much less than that, and we have noted that in their unsuccess. Spaces that are not deep enough do not allow certain uses to be within those spaces successfully. They don't have room for back of house, they don't have room for storage, and it excludes a lot of uses from those spaces. So this is an attempt to make sure that the uses that we are requiring can accommodate the uses that we want. The other design component that we added is the minimum ceiling height for the first floor. It would be a minimum of 13 feet. Next slide. I'm available if there are any questions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Cruz, I believe this was your item, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was. Amanda and staff, thank you so much for putting work and thought into this. Really excited to see this coming up on the commission today. I think it's the right thing to do for our city. I think that in the past, even with previous commissions, 6+ years, really in the entire history, please correct me if I'm wrong, there's never been an establishment of minimum percentage for commercial space area within a mixed use development. What does that create for Boynton? If we don't have a minimum, we can't require that when a new development's happening. And that creates a domino effect in the way that the city is going to look in the future. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I think that we need to move forward with this. It's going to be a positive for not only the way that the city looks towards Boynton Beach Boulevard and the other roads that Amanda mentioned, but it's something that it's going to have a positive impact with also traffic and viability and making our city more viable and more exciting. So thank you so much for you and for every member of staff that touched this document.
My pleasure. This was not a lone effort for sure.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? I see Commissioner Turkin, your hand is up.
Nope, thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing this up. I think this is very important. I went to the last P&D meeting, and this was also passed unanimously by the board as a recommendation to move forward. But one thing that they touched on, I don't know if anyone read the minutes, but it was very interesting, was this kind of plays into a couple other things we'll be talking in tonight, is what is the identity of the city? What are we going to be looking towards? Are we going to be walkable? And for me, this is what does that, because I just picture Ocean Avenue, right? Like, we look at East Ocean Cafe, we got some land there and some parcels. Like, I think that's a perfect opportunity to create a walkable downtown, right? And then you come down on Southeast 4th and you continue on down that corner, you continue to walk down, and that to me, that's walkable. It's not going to be like that if we just have residential units, apartments everywhere, right? So I think this is amazing to move forward with the identity, really creating the identity. I think it's just been up in the air, and I think it's for us, the commission, to identify now what that's going to look like for the future. And again, I think this is great. It's a great first step. I know just from the campaign trail, people, were concerned about, like, I can't walk anywhere. I can't park anywhere, I can't walk anywhere. So this is a great step.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Kelly?
Thank Thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing this up. I agree with you. I think it's important. I know this came up as a result of some projects that are coming up in the city that were supposed to be a mixed use property, but in looking at them, we found that the commercial component was small and limited and kind of prohibited the property from being a kind of a full service development project. So I know this stemmed out of one of those. And so I thank you for bringing this up. And I think it's important that we put some kind of requirements on what we envision. So thank you.
Board Member Hay, any questions or comments? Commissioner Hay, I should say. I'm still in CRA mode.
I know. It's okay. It's already been a long night. I agree with my colleague. Just say that there's also a historic house on 4th, right in the middle of this 70%. So we need to consider that. But I do agree with what my colleagues have said. But I don't want us to not overlook that, okay? Because we don't want to disturb that.
So I guess question for staff, does this only affect mixed use developments? And would it affect any historical area?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. So this is in relationship to mixed use developments. And these regulations are stored within the overlays, which means if you are existing, this does nothing to you. We have actually also worked on some exemptions, I think specifically for lots like that are within areas to be redeveloped to give these historic properties options to remain without disturbing development around them.
Any final questions or comments while Amanda's still up here? All right, hearing none. Again, there's no public comment on this since it's only first read. I'm going to ask, is there a motion to approve proposed ordinance number 22-018?
So move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second. I'm going to ask Maylee to begin the roll call. Council. Maylee. A microphone.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hay,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Penserga.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to
Good job. Good job.
You guys.
bit by bit. We're going to move on to the second item, B, proposed ordinance number 22-019. Council, would you like to read the item into the record?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, an ordinance of the city of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Article 2 of Chapter 18 of the Boynton Beach Code of Ordinances entitled Employees Pension Plan, amending Section 18-145 City of Boynton Beach Investment Policy for General Employees Pension Fund, providing for codification, conflict severability, and an effective date.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's hear from staff. Board members, excuse me, commissioners, would you like to hear from staff on this item? Is that a yes or a no? Yes. Yes, all right. So we have Mara coming up as well as Julie, Finance and HR. Oh, 1 second. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Mara Fredrickson, Director of Financial Services. So essentially, this ordinance is approving the investment policy for the general employee pension. It's adding the policy which was approved by the General Employee Pension Board back in May. And it's also diversifying the portfolio a little bit to allow the investment manager to allocate those funds a little more accordingly based on the market right now.
Okay. Questions or comments from my colleagues?
Yeah, when we say the investment manager, who is that?
I do not know the investment manager for their general employee
Is
pension
it
board.
the mayor?
I forgot his last name. That's why.
Yeah, I forgot his last name. It's Jeff.
Joe, what's his face?
Like a contractor?
There you go, that guy.
Yeah, the investment manager is selected by the general employee pension board itself.
And the mayor is the chair, so.
Yes, recently became the chair. It is one of the duties of being mayor, and we'll get you that information. I could not remember his last name. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? All right. Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve ordinance number 22-019?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kelly, a second from Commissioner Hay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hay,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Penserga.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which will also require Julie and Mara. Proposed ordinance number 22-020, first reading, council.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, an ordinance of the city of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending Article 3 of Chapter 18 of the Boynton Beach Code of Ordinances entitled Municipal Police Officers Retirement Trust Fund, amending Section 18-164 to provide for pension contributions by drop members, amending Section 18-175 Deferred Retirement Option Plan to provide for an 8-year drop, providing for codification, conflict severability, and an effective date.
All right, Julie.
Good evening, Julie Oldbury, Director of Human Resources and Risk. This item is, if you'll recall, we had the police, the PBA contracts come before you back in September. And during negotiations with police, we negotiated the change in the drop from 5 years to 8 years, and then added some that typically when the employees are in the drop, they don't contribute to their pension during that time. But what we did, we negotiated that they would then contribute 3% for years 6, 7, and 8. So inside the pension plan ordinance, we have to update all of that language with that. So Bonnie Jensen, who is the police pension attorney, she provided us with some, drafted language and everything, and then we got it all together through legal and whatnot. And then, so this is really just to make the pension plan document mirror, implement, give them the mechanism for implementing what was negotiated.
Thank you. And before we have any questions or comments on this, let me just return back to the Vice Mayor. The name was Jeff Swanson. Okay, that is our investment manager.
That's okay. I don't necessarily need to know. I was just wondering if it was like a member of staff or if it was you, if it was maybe the city manager. I just wasn't aware. So thank you.
All right. Well, I felt bad that I forgot his name. So.
That's okay.
Okay. All right. So questions or comments specifically on this item while they're up on the podium?
So this is just to make us compliant with the changes that we made with the CBA.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Wait, ordinance number 22-020.
Thank you for the clarification. We have a
Second
motion
again.
and a second from Commissioner Hay. Go ahead, City Clerk.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hay,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Penserga.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Moving on to the next item, proposed ordinance number 22-021, first reading. Council.
In the ordinance of the city of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending section 18-300, creation of consolidated deferred retirement option plan to exclude police officers and firefighters and to update for recent changes to the IRS code, providing for codification, conflict severability, and an effective date.
Go ahead.
Oldbury again. This item is, okay, so we've changed the police and the fire now have 8-year drops. A couple of years ago, we did a consolidated drop ordinance that had general, police, firefighters all in one. Now that they have different provisions than general, we need to remove all references for police officers and firefighters in that particular section, which is actually in the language, it falls in the general employees section of the plan. So we had to do it in 2 separate actions. But this is just removing references to them so we could implement the others.
This sounds like housekeeping.
Yes.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Oh, go ahead. If you're ready to make a motion,
Have any comments or? No.
just go ahead.
Okay. Motion to approve ordinance number 22-021.
We have a motion, and was that a second, Commissioner
Second.
Kelly?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Kelly made the second. All right, City Clerk?
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hay,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Penserga.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great. Moving on to the next proposed ordinance, number 22-022. Council.
I just want to take a little bit of time. Ordinance 22022, an ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 2, Land Development Process, Article 2, Planning and Zoning Division Services, Section 1F, to allow for an expiration of abandoned applications, and Section 7G, to establish a process for zoning interpretations, and Chapter 3, Zoning, Article 2, General Provisions, Section 11, to create an exemption for city-owned telecommunication towers used for essential services, and Article 3, zoning districts and overlay zones, Section 2.b, revising the parameters for permitted administrative adjustments. Article 4, use regulations, Section D, footnote 23, to revise the regulations for industrial uses on Ontario and collector roadways. Chapter 4, site development standards. Article 5, minimum off-street parking requirements, Section 3G, to include a sustainable parking ratio for select industrial uses, providing for conflict, severability, codification, and an effective date.
All right, Ms. Radigan.
Good evening. Again, for the record, Amanda Radigan, Planning and Zoning Director. It's a lot simpler than it sounds. If you could go to the next slide, please. This really is a series of small amendments. There are 6 amendments included, and all of them focus on really clarifying the intent of existing regulations. I'm going to run through briefly each one of the amendments. The first amendment is to allow for an expiration of abandoned applications. This has no implication on any approved items or items that have gone through the process. This amendment is to create a process to abandon any applications that have stalled within the approval process, meaning they submit and then they go away. This allows us an administrative way to close that application and be done with it. So this would prevent someone coming 3 years later and saying, hey, I submitted in 2017, this is my resubmittal. This puts a finite period of time, 6 months, the application closes. It does not prevent them from resubmitting an application at any time.
It keeps them moving.
It keeps them moving.
Okay.
The next code amendment is to create a process to request zoning interpretations. We do this regularly through zoning letters. What this does is formalize the process and allows us to start keeping track of them to create a series of interpretations to ensure that things are interpreted consistently over time. The next item is for the exemption of emergency facilities and essential services. This is specific to telecommunication towers that are city-owned and providing essential services. There is currently a height restriction of 100 feet for telecommunication towers. This would allow emergency facilities to go beyond that, but only to the height needed to provide the service. The next item is to adjust the industrial uses that are on Congress Avenue. Right now, if you are an industrial use on Congress Avenue, you are required to have a retail frontage. For reasons that we can all understand, we want our Congress Avenue to be preserved as a commercial center. However, there are parcels that have access from Congress, but do not necessarily front Congress. So what this does is allows us to determine if you do not have real building frontage, you do not have to provide that retail component. This is specific to a couple of parcels on on Congress, and it cleans up the code to really say if it's allowed and when it's allowed. The next item is specific to the sustainable parking reduction. This is existing in the code. If you fulfill a series of review criteria, you are eligible for reduced parking. Currently, this mainly talks about our residential parking component. This would add some industrial uses, not all industrial uses. It specifically adds warehousing, packing, and distribution. It allows them to get reduced parking rates if they do what they need to do to meet the criteria of sustainable development. This is a way to get these vast asphalt areas to do things like landscaping, to allow for alternate modes of transportation for workers, and so on. And the last one is really just a cleanup. We found, I won't call it an error, but outdated dates within our administrative adjustment process. So this cleaned up the dates. And that's it. I'm available for questions.
All right, questions or comments? Otherwise, a motion is welcome at any time. Vice Mayor Cruz.
Regarding the adjusting the regulations for industrial uses permitted on Congress Avenue, how many of those parcels or pieces of land are we talking about?
There is one that is kind of iconic that we can all reference. It's the Bethesda property, or what used to be the Bethesda property. It is currently for sale. It has access from Congress, but there is a huge retention area between the actual land and Congress. So the idea is that we do not want them to provide retail space back in the corner where no one can see. It's not feasible for the project, and it is not the intent of the code.
Question, there's this lot where I think Toys R Us used to be. Would that be one of those, would that be included in this regulation?
That is not an industrial property. That is a commercial property.
Yeah, but for example, like it looks like it's abandoned or we don't really know what's going to happen to it. Is that going to be allowed to be like a retail space, or is that going to be allowed to be industrial as well?
The zoning of that property is currently commercial, and it will remain commercial until an action of the board is taken to change it.
Thank you.
All right, anything else from my colleagues?
Can we get some examples of the emergency facility structure? I know cell towers was one,
It is specific to cell towers. So
just
we-
cell towers.
Yeah, so we already have some exemptions in the code that reference other city-owned properties and emergency facilities. This amendment is purely adding wireless cell towers to that exemption.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Board member, you're good?
I'm good. I'm
Commissioner?
ready to make motion.
You ready to make a motion?
Yeah.
All right, go
Motion to
ahead.
approve a proposal ordinance number 22-021 on first reading.
I believe this is 022, just for clarification. Is that correct?
What did I say?
21?
22.
22? Okay, just making sure. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. City Clerk, please begin roll call.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hay,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Pensurga.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So now we're going to move on to the proposed ordinance number 22-023. This is about the exemptions. I'm going to turn to council.
I'll read the title: An ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the City of Boynton Beach's Code of Ordinances, amending Chapter 23 entitled Taxation, Assessments, and Fees, Article 4 entitled Additional Homestead Exemption, Section 23-54, Additional Homestead Exemption for persons 65 and older, to amend the amount of exemption for low-income seniors from $25,000 to $50,000, and to provide an additional exemption for low-income long-term seniors, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and effective date. If I might just briefly explain the ordinance.
Absolutely,
At the
Council.
earlier meeting of the City Commission in July, the City Commission by consensus directed the ordinance to provide for the additional exemption as the amount had increased over time from 25 to 50 to the greatest extent possible. So we also, in addition to including that in the exemption for those low-income seniors to get up to the $50,000 exemption, additional homestead exemption, this also provides for an additional exemption for certain properties owned by senior citizens that have lived in that same property for 25 years or more, and the value is less than $250,000. They would get an exemption of the value of that property from the taxes. That second one, under Florida statutes, requires a 4/5 vote. So assuming you get a 4/5 vote, the ordinance in its entirety can move forward. If there's a reason and we only get a 3/5 vote, then we'd only be able to approve the increase from 25 to 50. And in the materials, you have been provided a brief fiscal impact that combined the two are approximately $210,000 a year in revenue to the city.
Thank you, Council. This was an item that I requested, so I just want to speak on it just briefly. There are two parts to this, but the most important point to make is that both of them applies for low-income seniors. And Council, double check me, but what is the criteria to be classified as a low-income senior? I believe it was $20,000 a year adjusted to CPI. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that was the original when they first adopted the ordinance. So it's gone up each year. I think maybe Mara knows the number, but I think it's in the 30s by now.
Okay.
But it's still a minimum number, a minimum amount of income because it gets adjusted every year by the state of Florida for that.
And this is household, not individual. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so we are talking about truly low-income seniors who are struggling between medicine, food, transportation, paying the bills. And so when I came across this, I thought this should be a no-brainer. All right, we are talking about the most vulnerable people in our community. And when you look at the dollars, the impact to them is significant, but the impact to us, the city, to our budget is minimal. And I was speaking to staff. I mean, the impact of this is a landscaping project. You know, this is something that will change their lives while also not having a significant impact on our budget. So to me, this is a no-brainer. I hope you will support it, but I want to hear from you because there's always nuance. So Vice Mayor.
Yep. Well, thank you, Mayor. I commend you for bringing this up. I think it's something that's very important. We do have a pretty large senior population in Boynton Beach, and I think this is a win for our seniors, you know, specifically low-income seniors who have to choose between paying for their medicine or paying their mortgage or their rent. You know, we're living in pretty high inflation right now in the country, and I think it's important for us to support our seniors. So thank you for bringing this up, and I fully support this.
All right.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
My brain was working. Okay. Question to staff: how would we disseminate this information to the community to let them know? Because I always think of, like, whenever we create a policy, I think of how we're going to implement it. So it makes me think about, first of all, how are we going to, and I don't know who's going to answer this question, but first of all, who is going to be in charge of disseminating this information or advertising or marketing this to our senior citizens in the city to make sure that we don't just create a policy, but they can actually take advantage of it. And then number two, I think that we might have to create some sort of an application to go with it, you know, and then we would need to have a staff member also to be able to support and assist seniors that, for example, if they have to submit online applications and they don't know how to use the internet or whatever, maybe they can come to City Hall, fill out a paper form or something like that.
Those are all excellent questions. What we'll do is I would like a multi-pronged approach as far as like getting the word out to all of our low-income seniors, specifically with our social media website, obviously with the application process. But what I'll do is I'll confer and I'll get back to you specifically in an email, and we'll make sure we are getting the word out to all the citizens that are going to have, just to let them know that that is available to them, that they qualify for it.
Excellent questions, Vice Mayor. I do want to say that you know, these exemptions are through the property appraiser's office, so I suspect we're going to have to work with them to coordinate messaging and also making sure that they're doing the right steps to get there. Absolutely. Commissioner Hay?
I just would add that when you do respond back to Vice Mayor, just respond to all of us, and so we can have that information. I do support that. Like you said, Mary, it's a no-brainer, really, because I once was young, and now I'm mature. But you never know when you could be in the same situation. And anything that we can do to help our senior citizens, we should do it without even thinking about it. It's, you know, if we can do it, we should do it. So thank you for bringing it up, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Turkin, then Commissioner Kelly.
Nope, Mayor, thank you for bringing this up. Great thing. I think that I hope for is for other municipalities to follow this. In comment for reaching out to the community, I think mailers would be a good idea. Maybe to go with the water bill when we do work with the county and understand what that language is going to be, because not everyone uses social media. My grandma doesn't. Some people do, but I want to make sure that we account for what's relatable, and so no one misses an opportunity on this. But I commend you for bringing this forward, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Kelly?
Yeah, I just kind of what Commissioner Turkin was saying, this is not really something that we can just send out via social media and expect that our low-income seniors are going to get the message. So I just encourage city staff to think outside of the box on how we can get this information out. But I support you, Mayor. Thank you for bringing this up. And I think it's important, like all of my colleagues have said, to support this very vulnerable class of our citizens. So thank you.
Commissioner?
One more comment, just kind of thinking through like how to get this out to the community. Maybe city staff can reach out to some of the presidents of our 55+ communities. I know they have meetings and bulletin boards and things like that. So I think that might be a good avenue as well.
Excellent.
Motion to approve ordinance number 22-023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a second. City Clerk?
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hay,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Pensurga.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next item, proposed ordinance number 22-024, first reading pertaining to height. Council.
An ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 3, Article 3, Section 1E, Table 3-4, Mixed-Use Urban Building and Site Regulations to reduce the building heights in the MUC and MU4 zoning districts, CDRV 22-004, providing for conflict severability codification and an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioner. Again, Amanda Radigan, Planning and Zoning Director. Manny, would you mind bringing up the presentation, please? Thank you so much. You could go to the next slide. So the amendment in front of you does deal with building heights within the city. This is a historical review of height within our city. In the year 2000, the maximum height was 100 feet and the maximum density was 40. To summarize the rest, 2001, a CRA plan was adopted that suggested and recommended more intense heights and more intense densities. So 2002 was the first codification of heights that reached 150 feet. All of the planning documents and the amendments since that date to 2016 did two things. It capped more lower heights within that 150 feet, and it dispersed those intensities in different areas. The 2016 plan essentially consolidated all of the plans that were done to date into one document. Next slide. Manny, next slide, please. Wrong way. Thank you. Okay, so this slide is specific to this height discussion. This height discussion started on May 17th. Staff was directed to look at ways to lower overall heights in the city. We were also directed to have a series of public meetings, which did take place. For the record, I will read what has happened since May 17th. On June 25th, we did have a height workshop held with the City Commission, and we were directed at that time to hold another height workshop with the P&D board to gather consensus from them. Following that, on October 12th, we did bring the Planning and Development Board a ordinance that was consistently seen in the P&D workshop and the City Commission workshop regarding height. And that brings us to today. The ordinance is now in front of you, expecting final adoption on November 1st. Next slide. So this adoption really has two different parts. The first part is the actual lowering of the heights. It would literally take MU4 from 100 feet to 80 feet, and it would take MU core from 150 feet to 85 feet. Next slide. Staff did put in a footnote into this provision to protect anything that was in lawful existence or vested, meaning having an active development order or building permits. So anything that is existing or in process would be exempt from these regulations and may maintain. What this does not do, this footnote would require anything that is new comply with current code. Next slide. That is the amendment you have in front of you. I would also like to point out, as stated earlier, we did have a P&D meeting on October 12th. There has been some consistent comments that we've heard throughout the meetings. They include, and we heard comments from the board, from the residents, and from landowners. Generally, I'd like to summarize their comments. They included They would like to see a more inclusive amendment, not just addressing height. There was worry about density, commercial areas, traffic of the sort. Next, there was a general discussion about a transition from a TOD to a more traditional downtown. And third, I think the underlying tone was a desire to minimize legal risk. That being said, since October 12th, staff did develop an alternative amendment, should the board like to hear that.
Vice Mayor?
Yep. I want to be careful with using acronyms because we have people watching that are, residents and such, and many of us don't have, the education and planning and zoning. So if we can just
Which acronym did I use?
TOD.
Thank you, transit-oriented development.
And
I
can you tell us-
apologize. Sometimes it just comes out and I don't even realize I do it. Thank you.
And just for the sake of people watching online and any residents that are here, can you go deeper into what TOD stands for and what it is and the meaning and such?
There are some parallels between a TOD and a downtown. Both concentrate people and places in a specific confined area. They both have activity in common, right? You want people and you want things to do and places to go. Some of the differences between the two is a TOD concentrates on transportation, and that usually includes a minimum number of jobs and a minimum number of households. So you usually see, and this is rooted in a sustainable development, movement that was led by Peter Calthrope. Too much information, but this was his movement many years ago. And it was the idea that we want less cars, and the way to do that is to use mass transit, use mobility, use micromobility, and condense people in a smaller area, AKA prevent sprawl. You put density in one place and you retain your single family neighborhoods. That's the idea of TOD. Downtowns have a much more broad definition. There are downtowns in small towns, right, that are just commercial spaces, sometimes some small mixed use with one unit above or offices above. So downtown really is a visioning word to describe whatever we want our downtown to be. Generally, I think that means we want people, we want places and things to do. The rest could be decided in some sort of visioning exercise.
Thank you, Amanda.
Pleasure.
Towards the end of your presentation, you said you have more information.
I do have an alternate amendment should the board want to hear it.
I would like to hear it. Why not? Already here.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna get one to them.
Thank you, sir.
So for the public, should you want a copy of this, the planning group does have copies. Feel free to see Craig. He has a stack of them if anyone wants one. Right behind you, Bonnie.
Can we maybe take this and put it on the screen by any chance?
I do not believe that Manny has it. I do apologize. This was done
That's okay.
quickly in order to give the board some more options.
We
Well,
appreciate
you
it.
can just at least verbally describe it.
Yes, that I will do. I just want to make sure people have it. Okay. Okay. So this alternative amendment is not what is in front of you today. This alternative amendment would do two things. It's two parts. The first part would be retiring mixed use core and MU4. What that means is that they will still live in the LDRs. They will still live on property. However, it will not be an option to rezone any new property to those zoning districts. That would be the first part. The second part would be to create a new zoning district. Right now, the name is up for debate. Right now, I've called it mixed use downtown. So mixed use downtown would give us the ability to do multiple things. We wouldn't just be addressing height. We could be reducing height to the 85 feet, which seems as the overall desire. We could be reducing density from anywhere to 70 to 80 units per acre. And we could be reducing FAR. The current FAR is 4. This would reduce it to 3.5. So some Some
Acronym.
advantages.
Acronym.
What did I say? FAR, thank you. I apologize. Floor area ratio. So what that essentially means, to explain a little bit further, is the available square footage that you could build. I apologize. I need an alarm acronym. So what this also does, it does minimize the risk substantially from the current amendment, as it does not take away any rights that are on the ground currently, but it does limit height for any new development, similar to the current amendment that you have. It does allow us to address multiple development standards in one go. It does begin the transition from TOD to downtown. And it's been done before. So we have done this historically at least once. I can maybe think of another time where we retired a zoning district, and it's actually in this area. So the downtown area was completely zoned to CBD, Central Business District. And when mixed use came along, we retired CBD and transitioned CBD to mixed use. This is kind of version 1.0 downtown, version 2.0 was this mixed use, and vision 3.0 would be mixed use downtown. There are more to this. We can add things like conditional uses for heights if we want. We could be as creative as we'd like, creating a new zoning district, and it limits legal exposure. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Just on initial impression, it sounds like we're achieving the same thing. We're limiting legal exposure, and we get to address it more comprehensively, because when we do a new zone, we'll get to address all those other items as well. But Commissioner Turkin, this was your item, so please begin.
I'd actually like to hear from y'all first, because I got a lengthy laundry list of comments I'm going to make towards the end.
I'll see.
All right. Commissioner Hay.
I would like to know where in the process would be the minimum for them not to be affected by the new.
So no one would be affected that currently has the rights now or is submitted under those rights existing. So the two attorneys that we heard from tonight, one Boynton would remain MU4, and this amendment would not affect her property, her client's property.
Okay.
And Hyperion, the other one that was mentioned today, is already zoned mixed use core and can amend their development orders under their existing zoning district.
So neither one of those would be affected. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Again, this is for new developments coming in. We would not apply mixed use core or MU4. So it lies stagnant. Who has it, they're vested. We don't take away rights. But anything new, any new development within our downtown would be using mixed use downtown.
All right, Vice Mayor Cruz.
Yep. Thank you to staff for bringing this additional option. I think we need to look at two things as a city, as a board. We need to look at our comp plan and we need to look at our CRA plan. I understand this is not a CRA meeting, but making an amendment to height would probably be a good idea to look at several different things, which might include height, which might include density, which might include several other components. So I did want to ask Commissioner Turkin the question of like, what is the purpose that you're trying to accomplish with this policy, so that if there was consensus from the board to support it, like what is your purpose with this, so that we can understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, so that we can make sure that whatever it is that it's being requested, there could be other things that are relative. For example, when I think of height, I start thinking of density, right? And so I do understand that it does make a slight bit of a change to density for, I guess, for the new urban mixed use, DT, downtown. So I just wanted to understand the purpose and then kind of like start having a conversation going from there.
Sure. So I think we should look at how do we get to this point? So if we look at the historical context, as we've heard from the history, from people who have been here, Commissioner Hay, you've lived here since '78. that what you said? We were never a tall city, right? A lot of these changes were made to adapt to this proposed TOD, right? There's this magical train station that's being thrown around that we want to chase. That does not exist in any plan that I've seen. I've spoken to a county commissioner. It does not exist. There's no plans for this. And if we want a train station, we wouldn't even meet the density needed based on any proposed developments in the pipeline, what we have now, right? So the idea of a train station, I know single-handedly that at least in the east side, people don't want. When you have this increased density, you have to keep up with your infrastructure, right? We're undermanned as a police department. Okay, so I want to share a little story. Last week, there's a 5-year-old kid crossing the road with his mom, and he was hit by a car. Okay, PD was great. You guys got him. Got the driver who left the vehicle. You see the officer shaking his head there. He knows what I'm talking about. Left the vehicle, ran on foot, and fled the scene, right? And so my worry is we're underpowered. And I use this example because it ties into everything else. We're underpowered as a police department and understaffed as a police department, yet we're having all this rapid development come into the city. We can't even serve our constituents to the best of our ability now. And then we want to allow more of a workload on the people serving this community, serving our constituents, I think is unjust to our constituents. And so, when we talked about strategic planning, we all agreed as a board that we were going to walk away from high density. We were going to focus on green space. We were going to focus on public safety. And so, when we did that strategic workshop, every single one of us agreed on that. The other thing I want to talk about is, with the height, Susan Orr mentioned that there's 93% of people that voted for it in 89. Things change, times change. What happened in 89 is different from what it is now. But I'd like to note that there was a petition of like 5,000 signatures that were against Riverwalk, which is the southeast corner of Woolbright and Federal. People didn't want that construction coming up. We had fatalities in that construction back in March. Two construction workers died there. And so, my purpose of bringing this whole thing up is to serve the people. It's what they want. It's what I've heard. And to catch up on infrastructure, we look at 13D, we're getting a report on our current infrastructure soon. And so, if that doesn't come back to our ideal, and yet we're continuing to promote all this development here, I don't think it's fair to our residents, right? And so if we look at Riverwalk, those are going to be luxury apartments. If we look at some other developments coming down the pipeline, those are luxury units, luxury apartments. So if we are sitting here as a board saying that we're supporting lower income individuals and we're supporting, to implement workforce housing, we're not doing that by continuing to allow high-end luxury apartments into our city. And, I just think I just don't think it's right if we continue down this path. I think, again, we need to identify what the future of this city is going to be. And I don't think it's going to be high. If we look at other, cities, and we've done the workshop, and, I've heard the comments that this was, just thrown out there. We've been working on this since May. I mean, this has been we've had a long time to look into this, and we've gotten a lot of good information from staff. Thank you, Adam and Amanda. And, I just don't, I want to do the right thing for the people that put me in, that want to see this city thrive and have its own identity. And, we hear about lawsuits and this and that. Delray did it. They settled. those commissioners, did some context, those commissioners took money from developers. They were friends with this developer. Developers sued the city, and then they said, we like him, he's a nice guy. They settled, and look how explosive Del Rey has become. Same thing with Jupiter. You know, they're a little bit higher. They're closer to what we're proposing today. But if you go to that city, you know, it's historic, it's green, it's clean. There's not a lot of traffic, right? The infrastructure's set up for what they have going there based on what I've seen. I'm not an engineer, so I'm just talking about as a guy just driving around, right? We look at, you know, where the marina is, and it's flooded every other day. We got a bad rain or a king tide. And so, you know, we want to continue all this development, but we're not focusing on what our residents need now, especially in this downtown area. Because if we wanted this density increased for a train, well, there's no train. I mean, is there any train coming? Any train station, I'm sorry?
So there has been consistently plans for a train station to be sited within Boynton Beach that is through the Coastal Link extension. That was done by the SFRTA, and it has been.
Acronym.
Goodness, I don't know this one. South Florida Regional Transportation Authority. I'll get better. I apologize. It was done in a study, and what that study showed is where the possible stations are.
Possible.
Yes, they
Right.
cited possible stations, and they also directed the cities who desired to have a station, what the thresholds would be for different types of stations. So our area, I'm testing my memory a little bit, but our area was like a community station, which required, I believe, at the time, this is a dated study, when a station is closer to fruition, it will be redone. But I believe they wanted 5,000 units and I think 12,000 jobs that go through the station. So that would include jobs here. And if people are living here, where they're going also. So those are two of the metrics that we look at when citing the scale of the TOD. There are small town TODs and there are obviously very large city TODs.
And so Coastal Star, you mentioned Brightline's opening a station in Boca, I think, at the end of the year, maybe. So you have Brightline, next one's West Palm, you know, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And they used that track that's right by the downtown district. So I don't see, did the Coastal Star use the same track or do they use the same one as the Tri-Rail?
Coastal Link uses Tri-Rail.
Okay.
So
the Tri-Rail is on the west side of 95 over by.
It would be an extension. They would be using the track that goes through our downtown.
Okay.
And that area, and it's a complicated situation, but essentially the problem or the challenge in getting this started has been that there is a private landowner with some public rights. So until there is a funding source to get Coastal Link up and running, and that takes coordination with all of the Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade cities, we wait until they come to us,
right?
Because it is privately initiated.
Right. So the other feedback that I got from the P&D board, who again voted for this unanimously, along with, you know, the other ordinance that was proposed to them, was that no one wants this train station. People don't want it. So maybe some do. I shouldn't generalize, but maybe some do. I can tell you who walks that downtown, you know, every other day. I don't want it. We have how many fatalities with the Brightline? I mean, you see it in the headlines every other day. And it's sad. The other thing I want to talk about is the identity of our town. You know, I just don't think Boynton Beach is meant to have a bunch of 150-foot buildings, because if we continue down this path, we're just going to keep building and building and building. And again, out of some of these new developments, I don't think Broadstone is workforce housing. Is that correct? I think they're luxury.
I do not believe they participated in the program. They are not building on site. They may be doing pay in lieu of. I would have to go
Right.
back and check.
But from what I remember with that proposal, it looked like a pretty high-end development.
Market rate.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And market rate. And so now we've discussed many times as a board, how are we going to combat this market rate? Is it going to be continuing luxury rentals to come in? I don't think so. I don't think that makes sense. I think it's putting our foot down, representing the people and really doing what's right. And, a whole nother conversation is home ownership. I think we've all kind of touched on that. But again, I think the things we need to look at is our infrastructure, public safety, and again, who we serve. We serve the people. We serve the residents of Boynton Beach. There is one question I have for Chief Bruder, if you can come up here.
Good evening, Chief.
Hey, Chief, how are you?
Good evening.
Hey, quick question. So in your fleet, what is the highest height that your ladder can go?
We have a 100-foot platform, and we also run a Quint concept fire department, which means we run 3 65 or 75-foot aerials and 2 engines.
With that 100-foot platform, with the scope, how high can you get?
Probably about 6 or 7 stories. The issue there is accessibility to the occupancy itself. In my former life as a battalion chief in the high-rise districts in Dade County, I can tell you, having experience commanding and fighting many high-rise fires, that it's not necessarily the fact that we're worried about the height itself. It's what are the individuals that are putting these projects together, what are they putting in front of the occupancy? Because if I can't get my fire truck to the building now, a 100-foot platform essentially is a 65-foot platform, because I've got 30 to 50 feet in front of the building that I can't get to. So it creates an issue for us to be able to get there. The other thing with the high rises and the density is, the potential for, evacuation if we have something major. But in today's modern construction techniques with sprinkler systems and standpipe systems, these buildings are very safe from a firefighting standpoint. So the height of the aerial apparatus are really more, the advantage of using these are really going to be more in low-rise structures or even in commercial occupancies where we need to have high water flow through these apparatus, where we utilize those apparatus because they have high amounts of water flow. But in terms of really being able to use it in a high rise, that 100-foot platform is probably 6 or 7 stories really of usable firefighting capability and rescue capability in terms of being able to rescue people off their balconies. So
awesome. Thank you for that information, Chief.
Welcome. Anybody else? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner?
Nope, I'd like to hear from my colleagues.
All right, we've all spoken, but I want to hear from Commissioner Kelly, then we'll come back to Vice Mayor.
Thank you. My feedback is this. I have concerns with the legal aspects of this, and this is why. In long time ago, Boynton Beach, there was development zoning issues where the city incurred a significant settlement that caused a significant issue with employees not getting paid and employees mass leaving. So if your concern is to retain employment and to keep everything moving, we have to be cautious about potential legal ramifications of any changes that are to be made, because it affects our residents and it affects our employees. So globally, a lawsuit against the city affects everyone. So we have to be careful. We also, I feel we have to be careful with how we approach this and how it gets viewed by the public and people who are watching Boynton to see what we're doing and to see what's going on and to see if they want to move their families here and to see if they want to make Boynton their home. And so with all of the change and everything happening quickly and hastily, I feel like we need to be mindful of that. So thank you, Amanda, for bringing this new potential amendment up. You did mention, you said the word limited liability. So I want to explore that with council, because one of the things that came up in my agenda review when I talked about the last one was that the potential liability was defendable. Now, in my mind, defendable means we will get sued, but we can defend it. And that means we're paying attorney's fees to defend it. And so, and then depending on the judge and depending on the court, it doesn't guarantee a win. So although I can understand and I can get behind the residents and what some of the residents have said that they want, we have to be cautious about what we do moving forward and how we do that, so that we don't cause ourselves to then be looked at as, here we are in another lawsuit, here we are getting sued again, and then people leave. And then where will Boynton be? So we want Boynton to be successful. We want people to keep coming to Boynton, not just so that we have tax income. But if we don't, then how do we pay for services? How do we increase police? How do we increase fire? How do we keep events going? How do we keep the residents happy and coming to Boynton if we aren't attractive to everyone? So those are my thoughts. I am, because this was just handed to us a little while ago, I am not comfortable voting on anything tonight, because I feel like I would like to talk to staff more about this new thing and exactly what we're limiting our liabilities, because I want to be clear. I want to make sure that everyone, that we're not being looked at in a bad way or a negative way. We are still, attractive to families and attractive to business. We talk about economic development, and we want to continue to be, a positive, have positive economic development and growth. And I want to be cautious in what movements we make, and that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay, going back to the question that I asked earlier to Commissioner Turkin was, what is the purpose of this ordinance? And correct me if I'm wrong, I took some notes. One of them was to catch up on infrastructure and flooding, the fact that we're building and we're still flooding and such. I get that and I agree with that. The second one, the zoning and the code, we're talking about bringing in high-end rentals, which are market rate versus workforce, where in reality, we have approved workforce housing as well, to be fair. But
Affiliated,
correct.
which I mentioned.
We just got here in March. With that being said, though, I want to ask either staff or the attorney to dissect a little bit on that. So again, it was catching up on infrastructure, which I 100% agree on. Then there's the zoning and code of what are we bringing to the city? We're bringing high-end rentals, which yes, it is true. And then third, the identity. Those are the 3 points that I basically understood from your argument. Is that correct? Okay.
Can you repeat the last point?
The last point was identity. What do we want to look like as a city? My question is, and again, attorney or whoever, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that as a commission and as a board, our ability to approve or deny projects is specifically based on the zoning and the code. So if an area is zoned for a specific purpose and it's residential, we can't tell a developer whether it is to be a for sale product versus a rental product. Is that correct or incorrect?
That is correct. That is market driven and part of property rights. I will say housing is another very complicated issue. Staff does intend to look into updating our workforce housing ordinance to hopefully more widely address workforce housing in all the development we see. But it is currently voluntary with bonuses included to increase density and possibly height the way it sits right now. Typically, what we have seen is developments being interested in the pay in lieu of program versus the building program. What that actually means is you will get market rate and you will get monies from the developers that goes into a housing fund for the city to then spend on workforce housing. That has been where development in general has leaned towards, and staff is expected to make modifications to hopefully increase workforce housing units.
Okay, as we're saying that, I don't want to keep.
No,
if you
no
want-
worries. I just very brief
Yep,
comment.
yep.
I just wanted to point out to my colleagues that that topic right there is something the previous commission had begun to discuss, but unfortunately we did not finish. It was one thing after another, a pandemic and such. So that is something I hope to revisit with all of you because this is an excellent conversation with really interesting things to go through. So we'll come back to that in a future time, but go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Okay. So I guess one of the arguments made was we are building a bunch of market rate apartments and we're not focusing on affordability. That was one of them. And we're getting filled up with apartment complexes. How much as a commission do we have the authority or the power to change that? I mean, can we, is it, and I guess this is a question for the attorney, but are we able to say, no, I don't want you to build
So I
rentals
think you're
here?
taking what I said out of you're taking what I said out of context, I think. That is not the prime argument here of selecting which one is which. The prime argument here is the density, the amount of people that are coming to the city, right? So we all focus on the environmental aspect as well at our strategic planning workshop. So if we have increased units, increased density, you're gonna have more people in a congested area. You're gonna have more traffic, more carbon emissions, right? More people using fuel, more waste, trash, everything. So if we are, if we are really focused on our carbon footprint here in Boynton Beach, then wouldn't we want to lower that impact?
I'm literally repeating verbatim what you stated, and I took notes. And one of those things was
Sure.
catching up on infrastructure, the high-end rentals you mentioned, like high-end
Yeah, that's a
versus
concern. That's not my
affordability.
prime argument for
And-
this, though.
All right, 1 second, you two. In this commission, we've never had an issue of talking over each other. So, Vice Mayor, if you could just finish your thought, and then Commissioner, if you want to respond, I just don't want anyone talking over each other.
So my purpose for asking those questions is to understand the purpose of what the commissioner's looking for so that we can address those concerns. I took notes for that purpose because I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. And that's the reason why I'm addressing these concerns and I'm asking legal for it because, again, I don't know if we have the authority to decide whether we have rentals or purchase. And that's just something that I wanted to address as part of my notes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, if a developer meets all the standards for development in the code, we won't be able to dictate to them whether they own or rent. They have the right to use their property if they meet the code the way that they deem appropriate for their own use. We wouldn't be able to dictate they must be condos versus apartments, for example.
Thank you. I guess that was the point that I
All
was
right,
trying
thank
to
you for that clarification. Commissioner, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's not like, that's a conversation we've all had on the board before, that we all would like more home ownership than rental. I mean, that's not the prime argument that I'm making here. I mean, the prime, I wouldn't even say argument, but like concern is like, hey, we're already behind and we're just going to continue growing. Like what sense does that make? Right? I mean, it's very practical. As far as tax revenues go, people will still come and build and develop in the city. There's not much where else to go. Our downtown district is a mile from the beach. Who doesn't want to be close to the beach? So the argument of like people aren't going to want to come and develop here, I think is, I don't think there's a lot of weight in that. It's just working with the right developers, the right clientele, right people, you know, and, you know, with that, I just want to say, like, we, again, serve the people, right? And I've heard concerns. I brought this notebook that I got. It's really scratchy handwriting. When I was knocking on doors, I asked everyone what I could do for them, whether I was going to be the next commissioner or not. And you go through this, and a lot of them is about rapid development, infrastructure. Code enforcement's in there a good bit too, Mr. Adam Temple. And you know, the other thing I wanted to mention is with the roads. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but the roadways, you know, we don't have the ability to widen Federal right now or Woolbright. We're not going to impede on the cemetery or the Little League field, right? I mean, it's already congested as it is now. Another thing is you go to that southeast corner where Riverwalk's being built and that Walgreens, you can't ever find parking. And then we're going to continue to grow, and grow. I don't think that's right. Like if we had wider roads and we had the infrastructure, like I don't know if we'd really be having this conversation. Like we just don't. And so I think this is a good step forward to create our identity and to really look into what kind of work we're gonna do as a board, and really bring something special to the residents of Boynton Beach.
All right. If I may, our board commissioner, do you want to add something before I comment?
Well, oh, sure. I really agree with Commissioner Amy Kelly 110% in terms of, you know, I have this issue with the legal aspect of it. I know that I was around back when there was a trade wind, and we ended up losing that battle to trade wind, and we had to pay out millions and millions of dollars, and it's still built. So I want to be careful on this move. Let it be known, I'm all in favor of reducing the height. I don't want to see 15-story buildings on northeast corner of Ocean and US 1 and no other place. But I think we may be moving a little too fast. It makes me very uncomfortable. I love the alternative that I've seen here, but as been stated, I want to ask some more questions of legal and the department about this before I vote on it. I don't like voting on things that I just been handed this, even though it looks good. But I want to digest it a little bit further. So I really want to see us hold off on this and just because again, you got to remember if they're out there and they meet code, which has already been established, there's not a whole lot we can do unless we just got a pot full of money at the end of the rainbow that we want to pay out. Because you know, I'm just looking at myself. If I was a developer, I would surely be looking at okay, how can I win this one? Because I don't want to be perceived as a city that change horses in the middle of the stream. You know, we've been oscillating back and forth. I never really agree with the ones that we have here. What is that, 14 stories or whatever it is. But here we go again. Now we allowed it. They now we're going to change our minds, and I don't know. I'm a little very uncomfortable with this whole thing at this stage. It may end up that we go that direction, but I just have a feeling that we're moving a little too fast. We have time. We it's not in a hurry. I want to know the projects that are in the plan now that we basically can't do anything about. And who are we impacting? What projects are we impacting? What does this do to those projects? I know that we want more green space. Well, you know, if you go up, you have green space. If you go down, you're not going to have that as much green space. So these are considerations that I want to take a look at in black and white before I make a decision that's going to impact the future of Boynton Beach for decades and decades and decades to come. So I just, I would rather not, my feeling, okay, I would rather not vote on this tonight. I want to discuss it a little bit more, ask a few more questions of our staff and legal, and then I can make a decision that I feel comfortable with.
Mayor, may I clarify process?
Yes, you may.
So as stated.
Clarify also when we started this conversation.
Yes, I think as stated in the presentation, it started in May, middle of May, so it has been approximately 5 months, and we've held approximately 5 meetings in those 5 months. So staff has been working diligently to move this along. Process-wise, however, Commissioner Hay, since this is not the ordinance in front of you, we can, correct me if I'm wrong, legal, but there is nothing to be voted on with this alternative. I assume the motion would be to table the existing ordinance, give staff a chance to develop a new ordinance that meets the general parameters, an opportunity to meet with the mayor, the vice mayor, and each of the commissioners to more thoroughly develop this new zoning district. So it would be a tabling and direction to staff to move in this direction, or you would vote on the item as presented in this ordinance, which is to lower the heights of MU4 and MU core.
Okay. Well,
all right. Thank you
Yeah,
for
and
that clarification.
that would be the
Council.
process. If you want to consider this alternative, you need to table it and allow staff to actually prepare the ordinance, develop it, discuss it, and bring it back to you.
So
that's
like
my position.
Okay.
So I just want to like throw out there for the record, like I don't want the city to be sued. I'm not saying like, yeah, let's get sued. That's not the case here. Right. But I do have hell of a backbone and I don't like to stand down, and I will always fight for the people that went to the polls and put my name on a ballot and do what they asked me to do. Because that's what I signed up for. I signed up to serve. And so I just want to say that for the record. Looking at this alternative amendment, this eliminates the proposed litigation that I think we have from some clients, correct?
I use the words minimal legal risk. I don't think there's ever zero risk, but I'll let legal chime in on.
Yeah, again, you know, it's new, we're looking at it, but if you don't take away something that somebody has, you
It wouldn't fall
basically
under Burke v.
eliminate
Harris.
that. Yeah, you know, maybe for the particular ones that have objected, how it affects other parties that are out there. It doesn't seem like it would, because right now, no one has this zoning district. They would have to change to this zoning district. So, and to not allow them to change to the other ones, I believe is not a large risk because they don't have it today. Right. That's the issue.
Thank you. Listen, I agree with my colleagues here, and the consensus that I'm hearing is that we're interested in hearing this alternative route, this alternative amendment. Let me just first thank Commissioner Turkin. It's clear to me that you listen to your constituents and that you're fighting for them. So I appreciate that, and I want to commend you on that.
May I just say something?
One second, let me finish. Everybody will get their time. 1 second. You know, as a teacher, there's something I like to tell my students, and it's an acronym. So I'm gonna tell you the acronym. No. It's a useful tool. All right. The acronym is KISS, and if you've ever heard of that, KISS stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. All right. Yeah. So before us are 2 different routes, and from what we've heard from staff, they accomplish the same thing, but one of them has minimal legal risk. It's not complicated. Take the one that minimizes legal risk and also accomplishes the same goal. And that's what I'm hearing. And listen, why would we even entertain the opposite, which is to say even risk litigation and settlement? Settlement and litigation is what you do when there's nothing else left. And when we go to litigation, whoever started that, whoever said it first, I would agree that that could be money that we take away from our budget. And then we compromise the pay of our employees, of our garbage men and women, of our police officers, our firefighters. That is not only irresponsible, but quite frankly, when you have the choice between in front of you to choose one that takes away or minimizes legal risk or the one that could lead to settlement and lawsuits, I would call that immoral. So the choice before us, in my mind, is quite simple. One minimizes legal risk, one has more risk. They both accomplish the same goal. So from my perspective, I agree with my colleagues. I'm interested in looking into more information about this and meeting with staff, and hopefully you can bring us back updated ordinance. Okay. Any other comments, Commissioner Turkman or anybody else? I know Commissioner Hay also wanted to chime in.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hay.
No, I just wanted to I'm not arguing anything.
Okay.
I just want to say to you
wrap it up.
that was not my intent to imply that, we want to be sued. Of course we don't. All right. I agree with you. I want to reduce height, but I want to do it in the most efficient and effective way. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Let's take a look at the alternative and let's ask some more questions. And we may be right back here, but at least we have more information. But,
No, I
okay.
agree with you 100%. I met with staff about this because my number one concern was litigation. My number one concern was litigation. Actually, my number two concern was litigation. My number one concern was what my constituents wanted. So, that being said, I don't know what the process is for this. I don't know if this is going to go back to P&D or not.
Yes, thank you for that question. I did meet with legal to talk about the route of this amendment. Considering that these amendments are largely based on the P&D meeting, and the quickest way to get this back in front of you would be to not take this amendment back to P&D. What we will be doing is to divide this large amendment, because we're adding a new zoning district, into two. So first, we will be bringing back the zoning district chapter, which establishes the zoning district and some of the parameters that are in front of you. Once that is adopted by the commission, staff will then go through the rest of the LDRs to make sure that references are cleaned up, that we are consistent with what we're talking about, add in make sure the retirement language is everywhere it needs to be. So we establish it first, and then we clean up all of the zoning code to match the new district. That amendment, that part two, will need to go back to the P&D because it has not been seen by them. And that amendment, since we will also be affecting uses, will need to be advertised. So we will be doing this in a two-part amendment.
What's the timeline for that?
We can work as quickly as you need us to. I mean, ideally,
I know there was an issue with Hurricane Ian with the P&D.
Yes.
And we had rescheduled that. And I think they're supposed to meet at the end of the month. And that got pushed back earlier this month.
Yeah, so typically our P&D meetings well, they always do, in November and December fall on our holiday weeks, and it is extremely difficult to have a quorum on those weeks. So historically what we've done is create one meeting between those two meetings. So right now I'm working with the P&D board to decide what day it is. Our options now are December 7th, 14th, or 15th for the P&D meeting.
Can you say that again?
December 7th, December 14th, and 15th for the
There's
P&D
not one
meeting.
in November due to Thanksgiving?
Exactly.
Okay. Understood.
All right.
The other thing I want to bring up for this alternative is looking at the density for the new downtown district. Can we change that down to 60? I think the other thing that I want to touch on what the mayor said, this alternative is also good because not only are we addressing height, but we're also addressing density.
I would say, from a planning standpoint, theoretically, this density could be anywhere between 60 and 80 feet, since those are the two we were eliminating. I chose to go to 70 to be a balance between the two existing densities that we are retiring. However, staff can amend this proposal in any way that there is consensus.
Yeah, I would like to see it for 60. Because I mean, density is the real issue when you look at like carbon imprint, you know what I mean?
At this point, the question is, how do we come up with these numbers? And I don't want to just throw out numbers.
Well, it needs to be sequential from the previous zone. So it can't be like you see MU3 is 50. We couldn't make the new district 40.
Right.
It would have to be higher than the previous
Oh,
zone.
absolutely. Staff, if you could just bring us some options, but I like what you said. Do a compromise, something in the middle.
Yeah, I don't want to
Board
lock
Commissioner
anything in.
Hay?
I don't want to lock anything in right now. Just do your due diligence and bring it back to
Yeah,
us.
bring it back to us. So,
Okay.
Vice Mayor Cruz, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say one last thing. We talked about this being discussed since May. We did have a meeting in May, and we did have a workshop, but I haven't seen this regulation ordinance proposal until last week when the agenda was just for full clarity, I hadn't seen this until the agenda was, submitted publicly.
Well, if I may, this ordinance reflects verbatim what was stated in the workshop.
Yes,
Okay.
of course, like you guys, like
Okay.
staff has been doing their due diligence, but from a voting body perspective, like I haven't been looking at
I'm
this
gonna
daily.
have to agree with her on this point,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
what's important for us from a decision-making standpoint is we see the exact language.
Yes.
Because that's ultimately what matters. So,
Yeah.
I
And
have to agree,
obviously-
because I also was looking for the language, so.
Right, and obviously staff needs time to work on things, but it's not like the commission has been looking at this ordinance for 5 months. We've been looking at it for about a week, just to make sure that we're clear on that. Another thing, and it's a slight concern that I have, like, I do commend you for working for your constituents. Like, it's something that's admirable, and obviously, like, it is the reason why we're here. We should be working for our constituents and doing something that is going to make our city better. At the same time, I want us to do it right the first time and not be rushed. I hate rushing through anything. I'm an analytical person. I like to know, plan, and like it's just how my brain works. So in order for me to feel comfortable, I understand staff is going to work on this. I want us to look at this holistically, because it's not just the height. When you lower the height, then if you have the same amount of density, for example, 20 units per acre, which is what I deal with mostly in my district. You have those 20 units per acre and you have a change in your height, then you're going to have to build smaller units. And so you're still going to have the same or maybe more people density wise in that area, even though the heights are smaller, or maybe the ceilings just get tighter, right? So that's why I want all of us to look at this holistically. I want to look at this as an inclusive amendment, and I think that providing that new zoning district provides that opportunity. So we definitely need to look at that and think about the density, and if that's the issue is the carbon footprint, and then that's probably something that we need to look at.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've had robust discussions, and it's
Yeah,
now
I just want to
approaching
say
9:45.
one more thing.
I would like to
know-
say, Commissioner, if we can make this our
Yeah.
closing comments.
Yeah, so I think like due diligence, right? So like I think like accountability starts with us first. So if I hold myself accountable, like we all need to research hot topic items like this, like the commercial development LDR. Like I went to the P&D board to look at that. I researched into it. I talked to staff about it because that's a hot ticket item, right? That came way after than this height proposal thing. There wasn't workshops. There wasn't anything like that. So I think like when we make decisions, we all need to do due diligence. So we're prepared and we're ready to go.
Excellent. Closing comments. Otherwise, may I have a motion to table this item and to direct staff to bring back a revised ordinance that incorporates the alternative amendment. May I have that motion?
So hold on, can I hear back the initial motion?
The motion is to table this item and to direct staff to bring back a revised ordinance that includes this alternative amendment that was presented to us. Correct.
May I ask for one clarification
Yes.
point? As worded, we would be bringing another amendment to the board, another ordinance that is discussed individually with each of the representatives. Is there any other process that you would like us to go through? I keep hearing undertones of a more holistic way to do this. And at the beginning of this conversation, we talked a lot about updating a visioning document, whether it's the CRA plan, whether it's economic development, and to get to follow recommendations of a plan like that. I just want to clarify the expectations of staff moving from here to the next step.
Yeah, with the CRA plan. So I talked to Twee about that. Adam Temple was also in the room. That everything we do with this is with the LDR. The CRA plan falls under the LDR. And like when I brought this up at a CRA board meeting, it was tabled or we didn't get to it. So like I brought this up talking about the CRA plan and like revisiting this. So what I would like, and what I think is right, I would like to move forward with this alternative amendment, right? And go through the right process. I would like to challenge my colleagues to do their due diligence, meet with staff about this if you have questions. So that way we are prepared to make these decisions and we're not just postponing. Because one thing that I talked about prior when we were going through the Pierce project was I want us to be a commission that gets stuff done and then, doesn't go back to our constituents and say, hey, oh, we're waiting. Like, let's get stuff done. We can get it done the right way. It just takes a team to do it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Kelly.
I just have one point on that.
And just for the record, we do have a motion on the table, but please go ahead.
Sure. No, and I think just to clarify for the record that, we never know what each other has going on with staff and everything. And I think that what had happened here was that, yes, we had 5 months of meetings and workshops, and I brought up legal in the workshops and my concerns with that. And there was examples and possibilities. And so then, there wasn't any conversation then between staff and the commission, at least me personally, until my agenda review. And then I hadn't had any conversation with staff at all about this, and it was just handed to me. So while, yes, I do my due diligence when I know something is coming up, and if I had been contacted by staff and said, hey, I want to discuss something with you, can we schedule a time? I make myself available. You can ask any staff, I make myself available for meetings because these are important. What we do is important. I do all my agenda reviews. I meet with CRA, I meet with staff. So there has to be some better communication if it's something that is being presented that's going to require us to have a little bit more one-on-one with staff to understand what's going on. I would appreciate that because I didn't get this and I had no idea about this until it was handed to me. So although other commissioners have maybe had an opportunity to see it, I have not. And so it's not, there isn't a clear process for us to get this information. So that's my point. That's my statement. So I would like staff to, if this, to make appointments and meet with us when it's something that is this important. This is important, and it is important to all of us. And that, I want to make that clear. This is not something I take lightly, and I understand what our residents are wanting and our vision for the city. But my point is, there has to be better communication when it's something that's this important, that's going to take more time, and some one-on-one with staff. So thank you.
All right,
I couldn't agree more with that.
Commissioner, if we could have the city manager respond.
Yeah, I'm just going to respond to that. That was both Amanda and Adam. They've poured hours and hours and hours into this aspect because we wanted to make sure we do represent the community, and we wanted to make sure that if we do try to present a item to the commission, that we do mitigate the chance of litigation and liability towards the city. Because I suffered under trade winds for even when I first came to the city in 2004, it was still affecting us. And so I understand that aspect, but these guys have been putting hours, sometimes till 11 o'clock at night, So this item that Amanda brought up, which is a brilliant, brilliant plan to accomplish what everyone wants, and it's a great compromise, that just came up yesterday. So it was a very last minute item. And I know we did the agenda review with both Commissioner Cruz, and you can vouch for this also, Commissioner Hay, or I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Cruz and Commissioner Hay. It's something that came up last minute. It was a bit of an epiphany, if you will, that they had on the phone together. So we don't just work 9 to 5. And I just want to give them full credit. They did an amazing job. So.
And I would like to apologize that this didn't get to everyone ahead of this meeting. Normally, of course, that is always our goal. We want to be as transparent as possible, but the epiphany came a little bit late. I'm sorry.
No, but if I may.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Nothing.
We're here to talk. We
keep
meet twice a
saying-
month.
Nothing.
We're
We
here
keep
to talk.
saying it's the last
I just-
thing. All right,
No, hold on, hold on.
can we make this
Yes.
the truly last
Yes.
thing?
I-
Okay, all right.
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
thank staff because, as the city manager mentioned, you guys are working so late and you didn't have to do that. We already had an agenda review. We already had something and you guys went above and beyond what you had to do. So I just want to make sure we appreciate you guys for all the work that you do. And that's it. I'm done.
All right, you're done. Are you done, Commissioner? This is last call.
Last call. I just
All right.
want to agree with what Vice Mayor just said. That I really appreciate the effort you guys have put in, but I want to understand it to the best of my ability too, what you guys have spent hours doing. And we're not trying to catch a plane here. We don't have to, rush into this thing before we miss the plane. So I appreciate what you guys have done and thank you.
All right, final comments, Commissioner Turkin.
No, I just want to piggyback with what Commissioner Kelly said about like these hot topic items. I was thinking about this before is I think it'd be very beneficial to like outside of our agenda reviews, like, hey, let's chat about this real quick, like maybe get a schedule for that. And like, I don't know if like we identify that as a body or if like I go to staff and like, hey, like this is something like maybe I'm a little bit ignorant on, like I'm not, well educated in, like, can you, really rope me in? Like, cause that's something that would be super helpful for me. And I think kind of what you were touching on, Commissioner Helly, I don't know what everyone else thinks, but that's just my 2 cents.
All right, Commissioner Kelly, final comments.
And it was nothing directed at you. I just was voicing my thoughts on that. And I do truly appreciate everything that staff does and for us and for the city. So I just wanted to clear the air on that. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion before us. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Vice Mayor Cruz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose say no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Folks,
Thank
we
you,
are
guys.
approaching 10 o'clock. I am gradually getting hungrier.
By
We
the
only have
second.
one more item left, one more, all right? So this is proposed ordinance number 22-017, first reading, Council.
An ordinance of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, amending the City of Boynton Beach's Code of Ordinances, amending Chapter 13 entitled License by creating Article 5 rental dwelling units, creating Division 1 entitled Applicability and Definitions, providing for title applicability and definitions, creating Division 2 entitled Residential Notice, to provide notice requirements for termination of monthly residential tenancy without specific duration and rental payment increases, creating Division 3 entitled Tenants Bill of Rights and Notice of Late Fees, provide for notice of tenants' rights and late fees for residential tenancies, and creating Division 4 entitled Enforcement, providing for conflicts, everybody codification, and an effective date. And if I may just briefly say, this is first reading in the ordinance. You saw the draft at the last meeting. The only change from the draft you saw before was that the commission wanted those notices to be provided for 90 days. So there is, so this ordinance provides for additional notice for monthly tenancies without set durations, notice for rent increases, requirements for late fees, and provides for a form bill of rights to be distributed.
Thank you. And since this was my item, I'd like to just reintroduce this to everybody. First of all, thank you to the previous discussion that we've had on this. And this was really born about from, similar to Commissioner Turkin, speaking with residents. And listen, people understand that rent control is not the route to go, but people would like the decency of being told when their leases are up and at what rate. Are they staying? What are the rates? They can't be told 2 weeks before. They can't be told, a couple of days before. And that creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of confusion. Where are they going to live? Where are they going to go? People have to come up with piles of money quickly to move for a new deposit and so on. And so this provides stability in our city. It provides that safety that people need with their families and their kids. To me, this is another no-brainer. And what this is saying is that we're going to tell people in a reasonable amount of time if your lease is going to change, if there's going to be a late fee, if any of those things that could jeopardize the welfare of your family. And the Bill of Rights is notifying people what their rights are. That's a no-brainer as well. So I'll leave my comments there because we've discussed this before. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, I reviewed this with legal a few times, so I'm prepared to vote on this. And I think it's great that you brought this forward, Mayor. I've talked to many people that have been impacted by this. Boynton one was one of them, right? Increased their rent, I think like 20%, something astronomical. And actually ran into these constituents in at Hurricane Alley the other week, and they're like, "Yeah, we're moving to Martin County." I'm like, "Why are you moving to Martin County? We can't afford it here anymore." And they had to be out in like 30 days or something crazy. So I think that's a prime example of what that'll prevent in the future.
Thank you. I'm hearing it from a variety of groups as well, including Sealoft. In fact, Sealoft was on the news X number of months ago for precisely this issue. Anything else from my colleagues?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. City Clerk?
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Turkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hay,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor Pensurga.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, before we adjourn for the evening, are there any final comments, truly final comments, before we adjourn? Commissioner Hay?
Yeah, I just would like to add for future agenda item, a discussion on the SJ proclamation for December 26th.
A discussion on it for the next, is that the next meeting? No, what did you say? What date?
Well, I didn't put a date on it, but yeah, we can discuss it
I thought
next.
you said the 26th.
Well,
That's the day.
December
Oh,
26th.
Oh, December 26th.
December 26th will be the day.
I was gonna say, okay, all right.
Do I need to put a date on when asked them to discuss that? Is that what you're asking?
That wasn't what I was asking, but, staff, I don't know how long that is something. No, this is not something that staff has to do yet. This is a discussion that you want to have.
Right.
We can have that discussion as early as next meeting. It's just a
Okay.
discussion.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Next meeting.
All right. Now, first of all, before we add that, is that something that the majority of us are even comfortable with moving forward?
I'm always open to conversation. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Again, this is final comments now. So are you finished?
I'm done.
You're done. Okay.
And I'll go last.
Okay.
Next to the last.
Vice Mayor.
Well, when we as a board make comments and say that we are prepared for the meeting and we are aware that there was something added to a specific agenda item after the agenda reviews were done. And city manager, I don't know if this is the case or not, but I believe that every commissioner on this day, as in the mayor, normally have agenda reviews with you and review and prepare for the meeting. However, when there's something added at the meeting, it doesn't follow our procedures that we created, our policy, which is to have things available 1 week prior to the meeting. So that does not necessarily mean that commissioners are not ready for the meeting. It just means that something was added after the fact. And I am done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly.
I do not have any more comments.
And I don't have any final comments. So now it's yours floor, Commissioner Turkin.
No, I just want to thank staff again. Amanda, Adam, I didn't get a chance to thank you for working diligently on this. And then I just want to bring up, for the 1% time that I probably agree with Mr. McNolly about the Christmas decorations. Is it true last year we didn't have them?
I think it was an oversight last year. It wasn't an intentional thing, but
Okay.
I do not remember, and I came here, I do not remember them being there.
Okay, so I think like that's.
I'll make it a
something
priority.
important. Yeah.
I'll take care of it.
You know-
Everyone should be treated fairly with that.
Listen, Commissioner, I said I didn't have any comments, but now I do.
I know.
Eleanor, did you want, I mean, you were approaching the podium. Did you want to say something? Because if you do, I think we'll wrap it up with you, okay? Okay, all right, we're good. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
We have a motion, a second. This meeting is adjourned. It's exactly 10 o'clock. Congratulations, we made it.